Welcome to the Hawks Nest live stream show. My name is Brandon Kane, and I do thank you for watching as we find ourselves so bloody close to the start of training camp. A couple of days away till its official start, though. Already the rookies are in there getting measured and weighed and going through probably some conditioning tests and whatnot on that side of it. But everybody's signed, of course, on into camp. Everything's looking good on that side of it. But this is always a good time of year to take a look at some of the camp battles. Got a couple of other items I want to talk about today. We've got some updates on Trey Hendrickson and Micah Parsons, fresh off of the news yesterday of Noah Fant being released and the Seahawks suddenly having $9 million more in the reserves on top of the copious amounts of cap space that they already were sitting on top of to potentially go make a major move if it rears its head as an option. You never know with these kind of things. I like to say they're fluid situations as it goes. As well, we've got a once former potential Seahawk target in the draft that many fans were pining for that's going to be missing for a year in action due to surgery, and also potentially making the Seahawks schedule just a little bit easier on that side of it. But first thing, let's get up to the camp battles and take a look at what's about to be undertaken here in the next couple of days, because I always think that there's a lot of intrigue to this. There's both the side of it that is the guys that are competing for the starting spot, doing all that they can to try to take that job and really ascend in that way. And then you've got the camp battles that have to do with you trying to maintain a place on the roster. There's not always going to be a practice squad. There's not always going to be another team that's going to pick you up. This is something I think that the Hard Knock show does a very good job of, which is just illustrating the level of desperation, sense of urgency that these players that are on the fringes edge of the roster have. And as we know, sometimes when you're, kind of got that point where it's like almost a gun to your head kind of situation, that sometimes that's the gasoline to light the fire that finally allows it all to kind of click in for you. And you never know that as well. So I think that this has actually got a lot to this as far as both sides of that. But we're going to look at a couple of these camp battles here right off the start and just discuss a little bit of what's at play between them. Also, what may, kind of occur here from a stylistic difference between the two and how that impacts the team as well. Because I think that that's going to be something that the coaching staff and front office is going to have to kind of measure up as they go through all of this. There's no particular order on this, but let's start off with our guy out there at safety. And Nick Emawari is going to be, of course, a guy we talked about very much wanting to take a look at what he's got going on this in training camp as far as how his usage. Is he at safety? Is he down in the slot? Does he even get some linebacker snaps? Is he mixed between all three just a little bit potentially at times, used like really truly a weapon? And we know with Kobe Bryant that he has ascended and he's going into a contract year. I would likely think here that Kobe's got this job well secured, but we know with the freak show that is Nick Emawari, we know with his nice fit to this defense and with his wide range of skills that could prove very tantalizing for Mike McDonald if he is just that good instantaneously. And you never know with these guys, especially their fit to McDonald's defense and how it all kind of situates. I tend to think that ideally from a coaching staff perspective, you take a guy like Nick Emawari, and this first year you're just sort of dipping his toes into the water. And I think back to the situation like Cam Chancellor. You had a once UW former great, one of my all-time favorite safeties, just fun to watch, and also because of his lineage back to the Washington Husky program, Lawyer Malloy, also kind of an all-time name too. But Lawyer Malloy came to Seattle late in his career, should have had him from day one. That's one of those guys, almost like a Buda Baker, where you're like, he should have just been here, should have drafted him, should have been our guy that just, let's keep some in-house guys here sometimes. I know you can do that, but he was a guy that I just loved growing up. He was a highly sought-after guy coming out of high school, and finally came around back to Seattle after a very long, very productive career. And you had him in there starting in front of Cam Chancellor in his rookie year. I think Pete knew at that time how good Cam was, but he wanted to get Cam to where you put him out in special teams, and then you have some sub packages you can bring him in, and then really look to the year two to really have him go into that starting spot, which fits well with, of course, Kobe Bryant being up for a contract, and that you are less impelled at that point to put him on an extension, and you can just slide right over to Nick Emawari after getting those toes and feet wet. But you never know if Nick might not just turn it on instantaneously and be that really great fit and just make it to where it's undeniable that you have to put him into that starting spot. And it's a first world problem kind of situation, as we have too many good safeties. We can only start two, and we've got three really good ones. But I think Nick would have to really, really be in that place to overtake this job. And then if he does, You're hearing reports of that in camp, that he's taking those snaps away from Kobe Bryant. It doesn't mean that he's just merely playing good or functional. It would mean that he is lightning like in a bottle, because all roads, instead, from a coaching staff perspective, would have you leaning towards staying with Kobe Bryant, rolling with him for the year, giving Amawari that slow roll into becoming a starter. That's kind of an ideal. Most teams are going to just thrust guys into the place, but much like with quarterbacking, everybody's going to benefit if you can give them a year to kind of sit and learn a little bit and just get themselves acclimated to the NFL conditions, because it's quite a thing. So this will be one that I'm definitely paying attention to, and if Nick blows it up, prepare to get really, really, really excited. All right, we got the next one up here, which is another one that's going to be very interesting. We've got Torrey Horton matched up in this corner, going up against Jake Bobo. This one's going to be fun because you've got a fan favorite in Bobo. You've got a fan favorite in Horton from this last draft, and that many out there, including myself, almost see him as maybe perhaps the best pure value pick in this draft for your Seattle Seahawks. Maybe he won't be the best player, but that you'll be going, man, to get that guy, that value, that spot of the draft a couple of years down the line, you could absolutely see it happen. And these two guys are really good, full-rounded players. That's what's fun about them, too, as far as wide receivers go. They can play in a variety of different spots. I think Horton's got a little bit more of an ability to play to the outside, where Bobo's more of an inside guy. Bobo's probably a better blocker, but Horton gives you the special teams punt return, maybe even kick return potential that he has in his bag, which Bobo's just not going to have the speed to bring. Bobo had a really good rookie year all around. He was a monster as a blocker, and when you threw him the football, it didn't matter if it was 11 feet, 12 feet up in the air, he was going to go up there and snag that thing and reel it in. Had a great touchdown catch against the Carolina Panthers in his rookie year. Came back last year and there were some drops. Came back last year and did have some opportunities with DK's injury to get out onto the football field and show a little bit of impact. Not tear the roof off, mind you, but just show that he can be a guy to sort of start in this league and ascend in that way. And it wasn't quite that way. It was a little bit of a sophomore slump for him. Hopefully he can bounce back this year, but I think that what stands out here is that this is a little bit less of a starter kind of battle, and this is going to be more about a battle of the roster spot. Because to my eyes, I think it's maybe even possibly going to be hard to keep even 4 wide receivers, but you're not going to keep more than 5. They kept 6 last year, but you're keeping 5 this year. So you've got JSN locked in, no doubt about it. Marquez Valdes-Scantling, I think, is locked in, no doubt about it. You have Cooper Kupp locked in, unless there's any, God forbid, any injuries worth that. So he's locked into where he's at. So that leaves you with a 4 and a 5 and a variety of different guys who can kind of potentially still fill that hole around that. I think that's where with these two, I think it's going to maybe come down to one of these two on it, the way it all kind of shuffles out by how you're going to probably carry this roster. But these are the two guys I'm going to be watching for, because you'd really like to see one of the two of them, as much as anything, rise up. We look at this receiving core right now, and people rightly pointed out in my chat yesterday on the show, and I believe it as well, is that it's definitely not a strong receiving core. You know, you took more of a step back in going to this receiving core from DK to Cooper Kupp. Not that DK would have been as good a fit to this offense, and maybe Cooper Kupp can revitalize his career and stay healthy. A lot of my assessment on Cooper Kupp is just the built-in, well, you're going to get like 9 good games of him. And that's a little bit of where he's kind of been at. Now, maybe he can get that late career kind of second, third, fourth wind, whatever you want to call it on that. But absent that, somebody's got to be rising up and around that and go and get that job done. And I really do believe that the Seahawks really could be in a position of even going down to 4 wide receivers potentially here on this roster, even that light and that lean, in order so that they can carry a fullback, in order so that they can carry potentially then 3 tight ends on top of it. I think even trying to carry 4 running backs. You love Damian Martinez. You're going to want to carry 4 running backs. This means you're going to have to go lighter somewhere. And if there's more of a dedication to playing 12 personnel or 21 personnel with a fullback on the field, 1 tight end, is there's less of a need to have so many wide receivers on the roster. This is where you're probably going to pull a little bit more leaner from. And it might come down to these 2 guys and who's able to go and win the day, so to speak, there. So a battle to watch, and one that's interesting in that both bring a lot to the table, but both bring a lot to the table that are kind of different things. You got one guy's got a little bit more of an ability with the speed and the sharp change of direction, being dynamic with the ball in his hands, and Horton And in Bobo, you've got the catch radius. You've got the supremely really good hands. You've got the red zone effect that he can bring that I know we haven't seen a lot of, but I do believe he's got that too as well. So this will be a fun little fight to look at as well between these two guys, as they're both different, but they're both good in their own way. We got up next up here is going to be the right guard battle. I would include Luaman here, but I think it's really going to come down to these two guys. Luaman's got some potential. I'm not tossing him out. He's going to be showing back up on this list here in a second as we're going through it, but this is going to come down a little bit like the prior discussion we just had with those two guys. This is more one about starting, but it's more also one about somewhat of a similar kind of situation. One guy is a big, massive athletic freak show that was raw as hell coming out of college. The other guy was a multi-year starter coming out of college who was supposed to be very pro-ready. There's no assembly required. You take it out the box, it's already set up. Just put it out there on the table, it's good to go. And instead, it didn't quite turn out that way for us, did it, on that side, unfortunately? As Christian Haynes had a real disappointing opening rookie year there. There were a couple of flashes in there. It wasn't completely horrible. It was just, by and large, not good. In Bradford's case, he came out 13 games starting at LSU when he originally came to the Seattle Seahawks. Very raw, very little bit of actual playing time out on the field. He needed time. But he was a 99 percentile type of athlete. And with that kind of build and that athleticism, this scheme that loves mobile offensive linemen, that really does stand out. And I think the way you heard the team talk about him and giving already some praise here early on throughout the offseason, talking about how he's looked in OTAs and best shape of his career, blah, blah, blah. You guys have heard all that stuff before. That they would, I think, like to go with this guy because he is the athletic guy that fits more purely to the scheme perhaps than Haynes. Haynes has familiarity with running zone-based scheme. He did it at UConn, so it's not that he can't do it. It's just that maybe he's not quite as athletic, not quite as physically dominant in his potential. He's more of what he is going to give you long term, which is the realization of what he offered as a draft prospect. So you hear that he's pro-ready, you hear that he should be ready-made, that you've got a pretty good, solid floor. He didn't necessarily get the returns of that in that first year, and I think there's a couple of different reasons for that, but those returns will be there, meaning that when we get him onto the field, if he is the guy that has to take over for Bradford, because Bradford's just still too raw and he's just not able to refine the technique enough, especially in this very detail-driven scheme, where it's not just about get the block done by any means necessary, but get the block done by the way that we're trying to teach you to exactly get it done. Now, that's going to benefit a guy like Haynes a little bit, who's a little bit more technician-like in his approach than Bradford, who's more, like a bear trying to maul you in the forest. It's kind of the difference between the two on that. So we'll see which way this battle goes, but please, by God, somebody take the starting job, please. Please. On to the next one here. And this is another one for the starting job. And this is another one that's actually a little bit of a microcosm of the right guard situation that we just talked about. And that's the center. You have Jalen Sundell, Dakota Kid, out there against Oluwatimi, the Remington Award winner. Best lineman in college football. A guy cut from the Haynes cloth. Started all these games in college football, ready-made to be a pro, they said, should hit the ground running. Like Haynes, first year, wasn't really ready to hit the ground running. Comes back last year, kind of starts to round into shape a little bit better. Now, not dominant, not, I wouldn't say even really good, but approaching into sort of a middle-of-the-road status as far as centers go in this league, you betcha, absolutely. But like with Haynes, what stands out with him is he is a bit more of the technician-based in his approach. He can operate within the move-based system. He can do that type of stuff. But he is a guy that is going to get the job done with his brain more than he's going to try to be getting it done with his brawn or his athleticism. He's average probably as a center in his ability to move around. So not as much that pure fit to this system that loves athletic centers. Which brings us over to Jalen Sundell. Jalen Sundell is very athletic. He can move. Go back and watch the Zach Charbonnet run against the Green Bay Packers. I think that was the one time Grubb ran in that game. Was that one of 2 or 3 times Grubb run in that game? I think that was three. I'm probably overstating it with 2. It was one of 3 rushing attempts in the Green Bay Packer football game where Zach Charbonnet busted out on that gap run that we had so much success with on the back half that Grubb just refused to keep running. And you saw Senda out front on that play. He's the guy out there rolling that thing out there as the lead dog on that train, and that's the center pulling out in front, getting way down the field 20, 25 yards, and that's what he's got in his bag. Athleticism. And it's something that this scheme does love to lean into. So while Olotimi becomes a bit of that safe harbor, much like Haynes becomes a bit of your safe harbor if you can't get the freak show to go, I think it's a bit of the same thing here. Coaching staff, I think if you put them under a polygraph, would like to have Sundell out there, or at least Clint Kubiak, have Sundell out there if he can get the job done in other ways, like in pass protection, for instance, to the way that they know that Olotimi will, because Olotimi will be pretty solid for you in pass pro. You're going to have a hard time getting around him. He's very smart. He stunts, blitzes, that type of stuff. He's on it. So, there is that part of it too that he brings. And again, just an interesting battle because you have a dichotomy of two different type of players. And we'll see a lot about how the coaching staff wants to lean on these kind of players by sort of who they pick. Maybe also on top of it, though, it can be just one of these guys just jumps up and they just take it. They go saying the job's going to be mine. I want this. I've been busting my ass all off season. I walk into camp and there's going to be no denying that I'm going to be the guy to be the lead dog. That's what we'd all like to see here, isn't it? With his offensive line. Just that alone. Just give me the center and the guard. One of you guys just did one of those Rocky montage off seasons, Oh, the tiger. Down there in the basement just doing push-ups. I don't know, whatever they had to do. Just somebody, please, this year, give us some legitimacy at the offensive line position. This was going to originally be a three-way battle here between Shamar, the kid that we got out of New Orleans, got himself a nice little interception last year on a cool play. Nehemiah Pritchett, last year's late-round draft pick by your Seattle Seahawks, and then it was going to also include Zy Alexander, the undrafted rookie free agent from LSU that the Seahawks had picked up after the draft. But it was announced today, unfortunately, that the Seahawks have waived Zy Alexander with a non-football injury designation. So I don't know what that means, other than he must have gotten injured away from playing football. And so that's why they're designating like that. Is he just not healthy? They bring in Cam Alexander, a cornerback, to basically replace him there for practice snaps. But that does now kind of remove him off the board of that. Also, nose tackle Justin Rogers was also signed. Just a camp body. Don't know anything about either of these two guys really that we signed on today, but they're more kind of, I would call it camp fodder than anything else if you're really trying to designate it. And it does bring down that competition a little bit lower now between just these two guys. And cornerback does remain a little bit of a position you keep your eye on, would maybe have a little bit of concerns at as the year goes along, especially if there's an injury or two there. We're going to be in some troubled waters. Shamar hasn't played very much at all. Not a lot to go off of with him. Nehemiah Pritchett hasn't played much at all. Not a lot to go off of with him. Pritchett last year was waiting his chance, had a couple of moments he was out on the football field here and there, and kind of a little bit of a hold on for dear life situation when he was. Then in the last game of the season against the Los Angeles Rams, really, really struggled in that game. Got picked on a little bit by Jimmy Garoppolo. And so you're looking for him to hopefully come a little bit more forward in his game. He can cover really well. That's the track record with him coming out of Auburn, is he could play man, he could play zone. He's very fast, very quick, very athletic. The questions with him are going to be just tackling mainly at the forefront with him, is where is he at on that side of it. But then also can a little bit more of development come forward this year with him from what we saw last year, because the preseason wasn't all that great with him either. And so you go, okay, you got some ability here. You've got some of the stuff I can teach to you. But when is the rest of this going to kind of come along? And we'll see with Shamar. We've seen in the past John Schneider target these kind of cornerbacks on other teams that are kind of forgotten about, and he can find a little bit of a diamond in the rough at times on these kind of players, a la like a DJ Reed, which he grabbed over from the Niners. So maybe a potential that they can pull off the same here with one of these two guys. But thank goodness you got Shaquille Griffin in here with that Zy Alexander injury, because you can only wonder what it would look like if you're trying to come into camp right now with no Zy Alexander, and basically these are your two cornerbacks on the back end of the roster. I am expecting it's going to come down to being probably a roster spot between these guys. Devin Witherspoon, Woolen. Am I spacing out all the cornerbacks we got right now on the team for some reason? Bring up my... Brain's not working today. Okay, so we got Joe, Witherspoon, Woolen as your three that are absolutely locked in there right now. Shaquille Griffin is your fourth. I don't think that they carry more than 5. So it is going to come down to one of these two guys on the side of it. As to who can win it or not on this, we'll see on that side. But I am expecting it to come down between these two on that battle unless we get something really good happening, which would be cool to see as well. How about a fullback battle? The fullback is returning to Seattle, and I'm not talking just in passing here and there. I'm talking full force, baby. We're getting the fullbacks return to Seattle. But who is going to be the fullback? And much like some of these other battles, you have a little bit of a difference of the type of the two that are going to be going head-to-head here and what both of them kind of bring. Brady Russell, you have more of a tight end convert to being kind of a fullback, but he gives you a lot as a pass catcher out of the backfield. Can he develop some of his supplemental skills as a blocker to rise up a little bit better to maybe take that job on? I know many of you might right now be thinking, well, Robbie Oots is for sure just going to be the guy. And he might, but let's remember with Robbie Oots and doing this is that he's still a rookie coming in. He's still a late round pick, and nothing is given with late round picks. And you do have in Brady Russell a guy who's had an opportunity to get himself prepared for this challenge in a way to, match Oots in certain respects, to maybe be a little bit ahead of him in certain things. And certainly he's got an edge on him as a pass catcher and what he can do versus what Oots is. Now, Oots is wide as a refrigerator and just, big, and it's got that body style that's absolutely perfect, old school fullback body to go meet a linebacker in the hole and deplete them. And I don't think Russell's got as much of that to his frame. And so this will be a fight to really pay attention to and key in on, especially when you come to preseason games. I would reckon that Seattle's going to give Russell a good run there at fullback, even though he's had a long pass to playing tight end. Because they've got their H-back on the roster too now. I don't think they're going with 2 there. It'd have to be, I think, as a fullback. He's had snaps doing that in the past here for your Seattle Seahawks. Had a decent little preseason last year for you as well, though this moment that I'm showing there with him snapshot, I think he dropped this particular pass. But which way do they go on this one? I'm guessing it's going to be Oots. I know that's the favorite here, but there's no telling what these guys that might have had this offseason to, like I say, just bust their butt, do all that they can to kind of maximize this opportunity and see if they can go take the job. So keep an eye on this fullback matchup as well. One to pay attention to, and it's no given Oots has the job. It's not like he's a 3rd-round pick here and where you selected him. So I understand, well, 5th round, they've cut 4th-rounders before that they've drafted multiple times over in my period of time. So nothing is given when you're a day 3 guy. You got to go earn it. Those are the training camp battles I would be paying attention to most. There is also another little bit of a quasi-safety battle that I didn't really pay a lot of attention to, where you've got Jarek Reed, D'Anthony Bell, AJ Finley, Demarion Williams, all kind of battling for what would be the 4th cornerback role on this team. I think with Jarek Reed having been here now for a couple of years and now fully a year removed from the torn ACL injury, I think he's probably going to have that job as the fourth safety here. So I just didn't consider that as much of a camp battle on that one, because I think it will be a battle, and you never know that maybe a guy like AJ Finley lights the world on fire or something. You never know with these guys that can just kind of come out of nowhere. But like Jarek Reed coming out, the team liked Jarek Reed coming out, and made sense last year why his impact was a little bit minimized because of the fact that he did have that ACL the prior year. Sometimes it takes these guys that extra year to kind of get fully over the top of the injury and get to the other side of it. You let me know, though. Is there a battle that you are paying attention to that I might have missed, or one that you're thinking about as more of on the forefront of your mind of it? Love to hear from you in the comment section below, or down in the comments after the video. Either way on that side of it, I do thank you for watching today. If you can hit that like button, I do appreciate it. I do like that. I do appreciate all of you guys for watching it, as well as already. We got a good, nice little bump here right out the gate with the new season here and a bunch of new subscribers. Thank you to all of you who have joined up here to the Hawks Nest and joined up and subbed up in that way. I really appreciate you guys for doing that. A couple of other notes here that are both Seahawks related, Seahawks adjacent related, or just kind of just some general NFL news of things that I just wanted to talk about before we get over to you guys in the chat here. And we spoke about yesterday, the Seattle Seahawks freed up some cap space, about $9 million or so, on top of having, about $30 million as it stood. You're sitting up with about top 4 amount of cap space in the NFL as it stands right now, sitting in a very pretty position to potentially go out there and still go and make some moves if a move presents itself. We don't always know which of these moves will present themselves. Sometimes it's ones that we are knowing about players that are on the market. Sometimes it's guys we didn't even know were going to be available, that there's a contract dispute or the guy's just tired of the team or whatever. There's a lot of reasons in the NFL guys move on, isn't there? But today we did get a little bit of some updates that I thought were very interesting. And the first one that I want to speak about is Mike Brown, the owner of the Cincinnati Bengals, spoke about the Trey Hendrickson deal, the potential of that deal. And he says, I think we'll get it done. So I think the fact, do you take it to the bank if the owner's saying this? Absolutely not. Take it with a grain of salt. We'll see if this actually does mean that the deal does get done. Nothing is currently on deck as far as in this department of thing that we're hearing about. So he feels confident in it. He also made some silly comments a little bit about the Shamar Stewart situation, where he was talking about the fact that they're held up on something that's a remote possibility of happening, and it makes him wonder why they're getting held up on it. But then he's also seeing that Shamar's people are getting held up on it, so it is what it is. Just a non sequitur response, basically, just a nothing response almost. Maybe a real possibility at this point that Shamar Stewart ends up going back to Texas A&M for another season. Then we got old Jerry Jones. Cowboys about to start another season here, okay? We're about to have another great season here. And I got to talk about contracts. You got me talking about contracts when we're America's team and we're about to win a Super Bowl championship. What are you people doing? Why are you pushing me in this way? I want to talk about Cowboy football. I want to talk about contracts. Contracts. He's trying to talk about no contracts here. Jerry Jones, though, indeed did himself no favors today, as I saw it presented online, that Jerry Jones's worst enemy is indeed Jerry Jones, as he just couldn't help himself when being asked a little bit about the Micah Parsons contract. So have a little listen to this one.
Just because we signed him doesn't mean we're going to have him. He was hurt 6 games last year. Seriously. We've signed, I remember signing a player for the highest paid at the position in the league, and he got knocked out 2/3 of the year, Dak Prescott. So there's a lot of things you can think about when you, just as the player does, when you're thinking about committing and guaranteeing money.
It's got to be hard to be a Cowboys fan. Your owner just every day gets out of bed and takes his foot and tries to shove it as deep down his throat as he possibly can. And he just can't help himself. Part of it's a little bit of getting a little bit older, right? He's getting in that, Cowboy. Just can't help himself. But always a great look at the start of training camp when you take a shot at your best defensive player and the leader at your quarterback position. Oh, it goes well over in the locker room. It always lands with just a soft, pillowy softness. I think that's it's just Jerry being a motivator. And just in case you think maybe I'm overstating this in the reaction of this and how this lands with said players, one Mr. Micah Parsons retweeted out J.J. Watt's response to this Jerry Jones soundbite. J.J. Watt said, anytime you can publicly take a dig at your star quarterback and your star pass rusher simultaneously right before the season begins, you just got to take it. Nothing makes guys want to fight for you more than hearing how upset you are that they got hurt while fighting for you. Reposted by Micah. So he's noticing. And he's letting the world know he's noticing, and the negotiations are still ongoing. Doesn't mean I'm saying there's a trade, just saying that, hey, doesn't harm us to keep an ear to the ground, does it? You know, one eye just kind of like those lizards, like those Galapagos lizards, you know, one eye here, one eye on the Seahawks, like, what is going on over there? Is Jerry going to do some stupid stuff? Because as they say, history may not repeat, but it does rhyme. And there was a time once, back in the day, you offloaded a very disgruntled Joey Galloway to the Dallas Cowboys. Got yourself a couple first-round picks out of the matter. Quite a haul even for then. Maybe we can go back to that Jerry Well. I just don't pay him this money, okay? It ain't about the fact I don't got the money, okay? I got the money, okay? I got to do some bond work. So I got to get a little bit of the derivative stuff knocked out now, okay? A little bit of that. We're going to need to sell some more tours. Going to give you more tours in the Cowboy facility on this one. But we'll get him paid. I got it. I got the money. I got the money. Just got to make a few moves. But I don't want to pay it. He's just going to be injured again. You know what's going to happen. He's just going to get hurt. He's just going to get injured. And we're just going to pay. That's not the Dallas way. Dallas Cowboys pay for production. Emmett produced. Troy produced. It's not producing Micah. Play on the rookie deal. So we'll see how this situation goes. One side, a little bit of maybe the downward arrow on the Hendrickson potential, but maybe a little bit of the upward arrow here on the Micah Parsons side of it. Maybe that's going to be the good end of it. Just something to kind of watch and pay attention to. We didn't speak about this yesterday, but just I want to cover this collectively a little bit right now, which is that something to monitor and watch a little bit and consider a little bit right now with a couple of the players coming up for your Seattle Seahawks is going to be the impending cost for these players. It's always sometimes a little bit hard to pin down when you have a guy coming off a rookie deal, especially if it's a guy that's got some shades to his game that aren't just necessarily by and large, he's blowing away everybody and he's just awesome and it's just undoubted and you have to just pay that guy. So you have Sauce Gardner gets a contract extension and George Karlaftis get a contract extension. Two positions that will have a reverberation effect when it comes to Riq Woolen's contract extension now or down the line, and Boye Mafe's contract extension, be it either now or down the line. Karlaftis signed for a little over $23 million per year on a 4-year deal. Sauce Gardner signed a ridiculous 4-year deal on a $30 million per season price tag. So when you're looking for the floor for both Woolen and for Mafe, look at these two deals and understand that this is where the floor begins for those guys. It only gets more expensive from that spot. All the more reason that you want to make sure and be absolutely positive, as much as you can be in this sport, that you want to spend this money on these guys, that it is a worthwhile cost, because this is a mighty chunk of change, even with the salary cap increasing, even with how the percentage base works on it, still a lot to give $30 million to a cornerback, especially if he's got parts of his game which aren't that great. Giving $30 million to Sauce Gardner, the guy's got 3 interceptions in his career. Woolen's got 11. Now, Sauce tackles a little bit better, but Woolen's better in coverage. And then Woolen's got the ball skills. And then the other part of it with Sauce is you've got him starting to become the penalty machine after the NFL to stop deciding he was going to be the prodigal son and letting him get away with it right and left like they did his rookie year because he had a cool nickname. And Karlaftis has only got 6 more sacks than Boye Mafe. And Mafe is probably a better run defender, even though Karlaftis is solid as a run defender. Mafe is probably a better run defender than Karlaftis. So people can come back and say, well, it's at least fairly equivalent when it's all settled out on that. So that's the cost. That's where it's going. Keep that in mind when you say, I want to keep Mafe. You're keeping Mafe at $24 million per year. Maybe 25. I want to keep Riq Woolen. You're not getting Riq Woolen. Don't start saying $22 million. Don't start saying $23 million. That's not going to be reality. It's going to start with the Sauce Gardner extension. It's going to start at that $30 million price tag. And he can wait till free agency and go get it after this season. So it's not a matter of he's got to wait 2 years or you have him over the barrel as far as leverage goes. On both of these guys' cases, they're in the final year of their contract, and these paydays are coming if they can stay healthy and stay on their current trajectory of where they're headed. So something to pay attention to, something to consider as we move into the future with both these two players when you consider the cost on that one. Last note here, got just one that I thought was just an interesting little thing I saw today that came up. And this is because this is slightly impactful to the Seattle Seahawks. And that is that Titans quarterback Will Levis will be undergoing season-ending surgery on the right shoulder injury he sustained last year before further aggravating it, I can't say that word, later in the season. Levis has been unable to shake the discomfort in his shoulder still bothering him. Levis is, in the words of a source, dedicated to the return to be able to compete at the highest level possible. So I mentioned Will Levis because this is the guy that came out of that draft a couple of years ago that had the likes of Kenny Pickett and Desmond Ridder and Malik Willis and Will Levis. And many Seahawks fans at that time were very much pushed to say, we've just got to go get the quarterback now. This was right after Russell Wilson had left. We didn't know what we had in Geno Smith. People were really, really angsty a bit to try and go get this quarterback position filled. And it kind of didn't matter who it was. It was sort of like, this is just an open hole that has to be filled. It doesn't matter who does it. And John Schneider took a different path at that point and saying, no, I'm going to be purposeful with who I bring in and who I target. I'm not just going to throw a numbers game at this problem. I'm not just going to throw draft picks at this issue. I want it to be the guys that I have the conviction on and that I believe in. And I want the timing to be right. I want the pick to be right for where we're taking that player. And in that draft, he didn't bite on any of those guys. And in not biting on those guys, he walked away with a really great draft as well. Charles Cross, Abraham Lucas, Walker, Mafe, Woolen, Kobe Bryant, because you weren't just locked in on getting a quarterback there and just sort of settling up. You got the best possible players in one of the best drafts probably in the Seattle Seahawks history when it all be said and done. And so you've got to give John some lauding here in the respect of the fact that, he got that decision right. And a lot of landing your quarterback of the future, a lot with finally getting the right guy, getting your Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, getting your Mahomes, getting your Jaden Daniels. A lot of that is about avoiding the landmines to get to the guy. It's not just simply the picking of the guy. It's avoiding the landmines that get you married to the wrong guy. So now you can't be with get the right one going. And you end up in that kind of cycle of searching for quarterbacks like the Chicago Bears have for three decades. That's how that can kind of go. So it's a part of the process people don't always talk about when it comes to quarterbacks, it's the ones you sometimes avoid as much as it is the ones that you actually select. But in John's case, I think you've got to give him a tip of the hat here in a large fashion for the fact that he's been on the right side of this quarterback situation throughout his time here in Seattle, selecting a Russell Wilson and targeting him and what Russell Wilson was able to become, getting behind Geno Smith when almost nobody was behind Geno Smith on that side of it. He's a guy that I've said on this has earned the right, I think, to have a little bit of a benefit of the doubt when it comes to quarterbacks. Not all positions, certainly not offensive line, but when it comes to the quarterback position, he seems to have a pretty strong eye for what he needs to look for and has been able to move with it with where the game's gone. A lot of the Russell Wilson selection was about how the game was moving here, not where it was, but where it was moving to as a sport and what the quarterback position was going to be required to do, namely using more of your mobility than ever before. And so in John on this one, I think we can definitely say there's a little bit of, from my perspective, in John I trust, and that because of these landmines you were able to avoid, just remember how loud the voices were at that time. You got to take Malik Willis with that first round pick. You got to do it. You got to. If you don't do this, you're going to be in quarterback hell. Geno Smith, are you kidding me? He didn't listen. Stuck to his guns. And gives me a little bit of added optimism, I'll say, in addition to that, when it comes to Jalen Milroe and the hope for him as well. Because this does carry forward, even with some of my pessimism that does exist with Jalen, it does have a little bit of a silver lining to that when you consider some of John's track record in this department of things. I thank you guys for watching today. Let's see where you guys are at with the chat. I don't know if we'll go quite as long as we kind of did yesterday, but let's just pick your guys' brains a little bit, see where you guys are at here right as we're about to head over into training camp and get this thing kicked off. A reminder to everybody, I'll be at the end of the month, right there at the 30, 31st, 1st, 2nd there at Fan Fest. I'll be going to training camp. So if you happen to be there on those days, a couple of those will be out there in Renton. I'll be up there on the left-hand side of the berm, up on the left-hand side as you're looking down on the field. So if you want to check me out over there, I'll be over on that side as well. I'll be over the Fan Fest. So if you happen to see me, please do, dab me up, say what's up, say hey. Love to put names to the faces if I happen to see you out and about. Really looking forward to this trip, and this is going to be a yearly thing for me, no doubt about that. I love doing it. Let's see where you guys are at, though, here in the chat. I got a couple Dome Nose behind on these. Let me get these back. Ryan Eddy, welcome back to the Hawks Nest Ring of Honor. I I thank you for that, man. Appreciate you becoming a member of the channel, or patrons of the channel as well. If you're not able to get through the YouTube membership program, I do have the membership program extended out over to the patrons as well. We're going to be kicking that back up as the season begins. We got call-in shows once a month. We're going to be doing Thursday night football for members only, Thursday night streams for members only. So if you want to be a part of that, do please join up on the membership side of that. I really appreciate you doing that, Ryan. He says, smash that like, hit the subscribe, and get the Ring of Honor membership. Ryan's my guy, man. I appreciate you for that, Ryan. And that reminder as well on that. Do please hit that like button. It does help the channel out, helps me grow, helps me show, helps YouTube say, hey, this is a guy that we want to promote and show out to other Seahawks fans looking for content right now, as we are just on the edge of getting into training camp. But Ryan, I appreciate you, man. I know you've been a long-time supporter of the channel as a member, and really appreciate you for that. Luke Britt, it's good evening. See ya. David, how you doing, man? Luke Britt says, it's a beautiful evening here in Eastern Oregon. I bet, man. This time of year up in the Pacific Northwest, there's no greater spot on God's earth. No greater spot. We picked up a nose tackle. We did, Sean. I don't know much about him, though. How you doing, PGZ? That hat looking good, man. Looking good. Where was that? Bobby, 76 on the top 100 list. That's pretty cool. Yeah, a little bit of a thing that we don't talk about with Bobby that I think is going to be really fun to watch, because it's something that we don't control locally here in Seattle as far as the perspective on this. NFL fans, nationally, historical NFL historians, is where will Bobby rank as an inside linebacker all time? He continues to stack up these seasons like he has, and especially given last year at his age, to take a team that young, not super talented defensively, all the way up to that conference championship point. At what point does he start getting talked about as the guy? I mean, doesn't he start to get a little bit of... let me say this. I'm kind of thinking through my thoughts as I'm trying to say this. I thought a couple of years ago he had solidified himself minimum as the fourth all-time inside linebacker in NFL history. I thought he had surpassed Mike Singletary. I thought with his longevity he had overtaken Urlacher. And now it came down to, Ray Lewis, Junior Seau, one of those old school guys out there, like the Pittsburgh guy. But I mean, he very well may be at the spot from some people's perspective at number 2 now behind Ray, with the long career that he's had and how he's been able to not just have a long career, but maintain a high level of play throughout that time. Get Money says, I personally don't think we trade for Trey Hendrickson. I think we've been drafting pretty well as of late. Yeah, I think that's probably accurate summation of the way we'll roll. We were talking through a little bit yesterday, and you definitely have your share of reasons as to where you could go as to why it doesn't quite fully add up. There's the Get Money. There's, the fact he's probably better suited to be a 4-3, put his hand in the dirt kind of guy than he is a stand him up off the edge kind of guy. Does he fit to fulfill really, truly the power edge role that McDonald wants in this defense? He's got some power stuff to his game, but I don't know if I'd call him a power edge. The cost, the age, the fact you already do have the 4 edges, you're probably giving up one of the young bucks to go get Hendrickson. There's definitely the argument on that to be made. It should be a no-go way on that one. Brian says, Torrey versus Bobo, KO Horton. It may be. It's a very possible. Kelly, how you doing? Says, hey, B, love me some K9, baby. K9, I think, is about to have a very good year. He's one of my breakout players, Kelly. I can't predict his health. Nobody knows on that side, but if he can just maintain the health. And it's weird how those guys sometimes can somehow maintain their health going into a contract year, Everything just starts to feel right at just the right time. HHG, I'm in a 7-hour of this 12-hour shift. Oh, my goodness. Hang on, buddy. Hang on. Jeffrey Thistle says, don't trust anything this organization says about offensive line players. They've proven they don't know their thumb from their elbow when it comes to offensive line. I can't argue with that, Jeffrey. That's for sure, man. And very true. Thank you, man, for 38 months, working your way into 4 years as a Hawks Nest member. I appreciate you for that. And yeah, we'll see if they're just blowing the same old kind of smoke as they have before. That same old kind of smoke. Catalyst saw that about Levis. R.I.P. the mayonnaise experiment. Well, at least he's got a lifetime of mayonnaise out of the whole situation, right? Spiegel says, look, if Olu gets his guy in a phone booth, he can win a lot. Yeah. Yeah, that's where you do wonder with the zone stuff and having to get to reach blocks, having to pull out in space, having to climb to the second level. And I will say that when you go back to the Michigan tape, there's two things that are true. And these things can sometimes seem like they have to be irrespective of each other. One, he's not the most mobile of centers out there. He's average down the line, pretty much. Average with quickness, average foot speed, average athleticism. But that he's also a guy that is so, let's call him world weary for a football field. Been around the block a time or two. And so he understands how to get his cheat steps. He understands how to get to a block almost a bit of a hair faster, because there's not going to be any wasted motion or any wasted steps. And he's got to land the hands in the right place. And even if he can't physically overcome you with fundamentals, he's going to overcome you. And that always gives him an inroad to things. It does, Smeagol. But he is at his best, as you put it, with the phone booth metaphor. You know, that's where he's sitting best. When he lands the combo blocks, he's great. You know, got a guy head up in front of him off on the nose as a zero tech. He's fine with that. He can one-on-one that guy all day. For the most part. Well, the guy's not a freak show. But yeah, can he do the movement and space stuff will be really the key with him. Can he continue to kind of just get it done like he did at college here at the pro level on that in this offense, which is really going to feature it? Jeffrey says the Kenny Easily shirt goes hard. I gotta bring out Kenny, man, right for training camp. We gotta set a tone, just like Kenny would have. Ricardo says, wouldn't Torrey Horton be competing with MVS for X snaps? I don't think when it comes to the last receiver on the roster with it, Ricardo would be that way. I mean, I think it's kind of two different things. He's competing with Bobo for the roster spot, but he's also would still be competing with MVS for snaps. You know, that's still also you would think would be an open competition there. I mean, MVS is going to have the inroads with being the guy they brought in for free agency to fill the role. But I think certainly if Horton is a healthy and at his full speed, you know, he certainly can match right up in there with MVS and maybe overtake that job. But it's more of this fight would be more between Bobo and him for just the roster. I was speaking more to the roster spot than the camp battle between, you know, starting or not starting on that one. And with Bobo, it's going to have to come down to his ability to be effective on the outside, Ricardo. To your point, back to the X. Bobo's got to be able to play X snaps because you've got already so many guys on this roster that play the slot at the receiver position, including MVS. MVS had like a third of his snaps out of the slot last year. So you got to slot guys by the boatload. You need more guys that can play to the outside. And that's where Bobo has shown at times an ability to win on the outside at the pro level. But that's what he's going to have to do in that fight if he's going to overtake Torrey there. Little Drip says, does anybody know if that's legit that Murphy's not playing nose tackle this year? Well, Murphy said in a recent post, Little Drip, when he was asked about it, that he's been working more in his pass rush and that he's been under the expectation that he's going to be doing more 3-tech rushing the passer stuff and less nose tackle. So that is straight from the horse's mouth on that. But I may be one of those plans that sounds great in the offseason, but you've also done not a lot, Little Drip, other than bring Hankins back. You know, you've got the same conditions that you put in place last year that created the need to move Murphy into the nose tackle position. Outside of just fully moving Jaron Reed to nose tackle, you've kind of set the stage for that to be a potentiality once again. But hard to say how it'll roll. Robbie's going to have a rave song, says Jeffrey. Well, you guys know one of my favorite ones with Robbie Oots. You want to know how hard Robbie Oots is going to try, man? Hold on, let me show you this. Look at this. Look at the effort on this 40. Look at the stash. Chewing on his tongue. Eyes intense like he's about to charge the beaches of Normandy. I mean, just take the stash in there. That's a man. That's a man trying to run the fastest for you. That's a man that will meet a middle linebacker in the hole and give you everything he's got. A little bit of a power mullet going. Look at that thing flopping in the breeze behind him. There's not even a breeze in the stadium, but there was a breeze just by that mullet. The mullet created the breeze. He's going to be a good fullback. That's a fullback face. You tell me that's not a fullback face right there. You tell me it. Tell me that's not a man that plays 10 years. Breaking face masks 24/7. You're walking up into the hole as a linebacker. You're about to fill the hole, and this face comes charging at you. Come on. Come on, you're making a business decision. Don't you lie. Don't you lie to me. You're making a business decision. I'll get in on the next play. I'll get in on the next one. Jerry Jones is always good content. He's the gift that keeps on giving. It's because we're going to win. They don't like us because we're going to win. They don't like me because I'm a winner. I win Super Bowls. That brings them all at you. You know, makes you puts a big target on you, but we're Texas. We're used to big targets. Smigo says, need to send 11 in Dallas to Seattle, Jerry. Stewart says, pride goeth before mediocrity. Oh, goodness. Micah's herbicide's got to arrive. Micah's cost is it's going to be somewhere between 40 and 45, and it's probably going to be closer to the 45 number than it is to the 40 number. Smeek Mall says, I think Jerry even said at one point he'd never trade with Seattle again because of the Galloway deal. Kendrick says, Mike Brown says he thinks a new deal will get done. He didn't say Bengals will be the one to give him the new deal. Oh, that is that new trick people play now, isn't it? Like Kendrick, there's this whole new like lawyer speak people do. It's like, he didn't work for us. What, did you like contract? Well, you might have been a contractor, but he didn't work for us. You asked if he worked for us. I said he wouldn't work for us. I didn't say the deal would be with us. I said there'd be a deal. That is kind of a snaky thing an NFL owner would say, isn't it, Kendrick? That's definitely something they would do. Mr. Dog, this is a long period where there's hardly any Hawks Nest streams. Not cool. We're going to start coming back hotter here. It's heating back up. It's heating up. Little Dallas Cowboy, yay. Let's go, Jerry. Micah is a diva. We'll trade you for that. We'll trade you that Galloway deal, part 2. Great show as always, Brandon. Also, never forget, Dak sucks. Laughing out loud, but for real, he sucks. Well, Jerry, the way Jerry was talking about him today, made him the highest paid player in the NFL. Didn't play a whole freaking season. How's that going to happen? I give you all the money anybody else in this sport, and you ain't going to play a whole year for me? Oh, my leg, Dak says. My leg. Son, I got a prostate the size of Irvin, okay? Don't talk to me about your damn leg. I ingest 45 pills every day to keep me alive. Don't talk to me about your leg, young man. You will play, and you will play well. We're not getting 2 number ones is 2. We'll go a 1, but you can have one of our edges. That's what you get, little Dallas. You can have one of the edges. You get a 1 plus an edge. and you can have your pick. You get a one. We got to pay the guy still. You don't get max return when we got to pay the dude $43.5 million a year per 4-year deal. Like Jerry said, he missed 6 games last year. It was only. By the way, folks, if you are going to take a shot at your star player who you're currently in contract negotiations with, and you're going to start to nitpick some of what you don't like and what he's done, even though he's produced from you from day one walking on the football field, and you're going to start throwing some facts out there to make him look not good, make sure you get your facts right. Make sure you're correct in what you're. So he says, yeah, he missed 6 games last year. He missed 4. He missed 4. Like, come on, Jerry. Just step it back into the shadows, my man. Nagasa says it's definitely not the floor for Mafe. He was worse than Karlaftis. Well, both of them came into the league at the same time, Nagasa's. Karlaftis has like 5-6 more sacks in total than Mafe does. Mafe is a better player as a run defender. Karlaftis is solid as a run defender. Mafe is legitimately good as a run defender. So from Mafe's people's standpoint, when it breaks down to it in the negotiations, I guarantee the deal is going to be that as the floor when they start this off. 100%. 100%. That's not even a hard one. This is just the way the NFL works with these deals. They don't, the agents and the way those extensions will work, there won't be a differentiation on that. Stuart says we need to stop paying okay players fantastic salaries. See Draymond Jones. Amen. Amen on that. Probably don't want to bring guys in from the outside too and move them to different positions. Probably also not the smartest of roles as well. In addition to that. Beyblades Plumber, let it be known that you and Brendan were the #1 haters on Milroe. And I was a day one supporter. Well, it is duly noted. I don't know. It definitely where a lot of folks took the criticism I had was that I'm hating on Milroe, which is always the part I think it just confused me a little bit, Bay, in the respect of I'm not a hater of the guy. He seemed like a really good human being. He seems like a really hard worker. There's nothing personal about him that there's anything I dislike. The evaluation was just purely on what I saw from him as a player and the lack of faith in having what I saw from him be able to develop as a pro. But there's nothing in it I'm rooting for the kid, man. I think if I was a hater, I wouldn't be rooting for him. I think I've said, probably about 35 times over that I want to be wrong on him. I want to be wrong in my evaluation, but that's what it was, Bay, is it's an evaluation. I look at 300 plus prospects every year in the draft, and I look at their game film, and I watch the All-22, and spend hours after hours that aren't with me on a camera. So it's, just an opinion. Just a guy with a mic. I'm not smart than anybody else, but it's just an opinion. Bay says, I love your videos though, bro. I appreciate that, man. And I fully give you props on those that are ahead of this on the Milroe thing. Because if you are right on this, you're right on a player type that hasn't worked a lot here in recent history much at all in the NFL. So you're definitely seeing something, a bit kind of as a new evolution a little bit for the sport in quarterbacks' ability to develop things that they haven't been able to develop prior, which with VR training, with advanced teaching techniques that are out there, maybe there's a possibility that they can tap into that. And I am hopeful. This is one thing I want to make sure I say. I mean, the hater thing's fine, but I just want to make sure, very hopeful on this, that he can develop. I want to be wrong all the way around. I want this guy to be our franchise quarterback for the next 15 years, and I have nothing but people say, remember when you got that wrong? Because that'll mean that we have an awesome team and we're doing great. So I hope it goes that way. I do. Truly. I'm not in the John We Trust train. I hopped off of the station when we had options to fix lines in the draft. And there's a few of those folks out there, HHG, in that camp of things. Camp's not at the VMAC? Camp's at the VMAC. No, it is. King, Seattle releasing Noah Fant was a good move. Hope he goes somewhere else and succeeds, but it's time for Barner and Arroyo. Barner and Arroyo. The law firm you need. Yes, I agree with you, King. I don't like having kind of just bad money on the books that you know you're not going to maximize. And that $9 million of Fant on the roster was not a maximization of a salary cap. That I think especially the key on this really becomes of, you can maybe have a guy like Fant on the roster at $9 million if your dead money's kind of low. But when you have your dead money sitting up around $70 million, then you need to be making sure that the money that you do have in hand, the players that you do have on, that it is legit being used to the nth degree. And I don't think you're doing that if you were holding them on the roster. So it just made sense. Nazir, how you doing? It's good to see you, man. Almost there. Spiegel says, for me, whatever Woolen's price ends up being, it cannot mean we are then unable to pay Devon. There's just no way that can happen in my reality. And my prediction on this, and this isn't me saying I wouldn't want to sign Woolen, this is just purely if I'm reading the tea leaves on the way that I think this prediction is going to go with this Smigel. Sorry, let me say your name right. Is that I think that it's a little bit of like the situation with the DKJSN situation, being that, you're not going to pay two receivers at the same time. I know the Bengals just did this. The Bengals are literally the only team out there doing this. No other team's looking to replicate this kind of situation because you just from a roster management standpoint can't afford to do it while building up the rest of the team, especially if you're spending any kind of money on your quarterback position. And so I think it's a very similar thing at the corner position where can you afford to pay two guys $30 million a year at the very same time? And the answer to me is probably going to be a no on that one. And so one might completely just light the world on fire, and it just makes it just impossible for you not to say, hey, we got to re-sign him to extension. Let's just do it. But I think the likely way this plays out is he goes out, has a really good, contract year, goes and gets paid probably somewhere else, like the Raiders, for instance, and gets that $30 million a year deal with them. And you then pay Witherspoon, after the season. Because that's the other thing with Woolen coming up for free agency after the year is then Witherspoon's eligible to be paid after the season. He will have completed his third year and be due to be given an extension at that time. But that's just a prediction, not what I'm on. Just I think it'll probably go that way. CJ says, Brandon, I'm curious on your point. Sauce got paid first, but wouldn't Reek be open to taking a few million less than him if offered? Fair or not, he has to know how the league views him in comparison. I could be off on this. I'm. These are all certainly at times, guesses and just trying to kind of base it on what I've seen in the past and how things have gone in the past. But when you have a guy like Woolen, I think his people come to these negotiations and they say that he's replicated in every way what Sauce Gardner's been able to do from a productivity standpoint, minimum, if not surpassed it. And certainly when you're sitting at like 11 interceptions and the guy across from you's got 3, and the ball skills between those guys are also quite different, by the way. It's not just a matter of like Woolen's got 11 interceptions, this guy's got 3. It's that there's a reason Woolen's got those interceptions because he's got a level of ball skills that Sauce just doesn't have. So is there maybe a reputation throughout the league to where Woolen couldn't get that deal? Maybe. That's why I mentioned, though, CJ, a little bit of like the Raiders situation. Like, Carroll's not going to, be in Brady's ear and everybody's ear after the season saying, give this guy $30 million on the open market. And it only just takes one team. It just takes one team with a cap situation. And remember with this CJ too, remember what Shaquille Griffin got on the open market? Shaquille Griffin on the open market after his rookie contract and being a third-round pick, where his play was pretty middling overall. I think he had like one kind of solid season, somewhat, but it wasn't like he was ever a top 10, top 20 rated corner at any given time. And he got a $14 million per year deal from the Jacksonville Jaguars 5 years ago. $14 million per for Shaquille Griffin coming off that rookie deal. And Woolen has surpassed what he did on his rookie deal. So I don't know. I think from Woolen's people's standpoint, and this is kind of backed up, CJ, by the fact that Woolen literally reposted the news of Sauce Gardner being paid. I think his people view it as, I am every bit at what he is, if not better. So I should get every bit of what he's getting, if not more. But I am making the prediction on this. Maybe the NFL is a little bit smarter on this one, especially when it comes to some of the, lack of great tackling at all times and going, no, you got a great big hole in your game on the other side of this that, does diminish your value and is going to hold you back from being, quite worth that. But I think that it's so close that it's more about they're going to be much closer together on where the final contract numbers are going to land between Woolen and Sauce than they're going to be further apart. You're not going to be seeing Sauce at 30 and Woolen down at like 22. It'd be more like maybe 28 to 30, 27 to 30, 27 and a half to the 30. At least this is how it's been in years past with these kind of players coming up for, the next deals and how this all kind of can, work with that. A couple donations here. Sorry, I'm a little bit late on getting these through. I'm sorry, I got caught up here. Jeffrey, thank you for the, I think I read that one on Jeffrey's. DJ, thank you for the $2 donation. It says, hashtag trade for Terry. Hey, Terry McLaurin all day long. If Washington's willing to move him in a deal, I certainly would jump on that one with 2 feet, because Terry McLaurin is a hell of a player, great route runner, can kind of do everything from the receiver position, and I think Washington would be kind of dumb to move him at this point. But that's also why I just can't see them actually end up moving him. They'll probably end up getting a deal done. I'd be very surprised. There's so many good vibes coming out of Washington right now, and they seem like a team that really might have a chance to make some noise this year. Feels like that they'll eventually figure something out there. Randall McDaniel in the house. Randall, it's good to see you, man. A couple donations back to back to back. Thank you for that, brother. I always appreciate you. It says, top battles as I see it: right guard, center, wide receiver 3 and 4, fullback, cornerback, and then you've got Mafe, Nwosu, Hall probably all play same snaps if healthy. Kickoff and punt return is interesting too. Kickoff, punt return is going to be an interesting one to pay attention to. I think you've got Kenny McIntosh is probably going to be your kick returner. I think that Torrey Horton's got the inside track to being your punt returner, but it's not dead set on that. And Randall, that's a pretty good list, man. You got, right down the line, pretty much exactly the way that I had it chopped up at the start of this. So I had the safety position a little bit with Emawari and Bryant. We got Horton and Bobo going head to head here, Randy. We've got the right guard situation with Haynes and Bradford. I would have added on top of this too. Thought I had this in here. Got one more that I forgot to actually touch on that maybe I didn't get that one put up. I forgot to get the deal done on this one. But the other battle on this one too is going to be the fight, Randall, with potentially Sa'atoa Lamea and Bryce Cabledew. And who might be able to win in that battle of things going back and forth there for the basically fourth guard spot on the roster. But I think it's Haynes and Bradford duking it out there for that right guard spot. Then the two centers that you had mentioned. So got the center in there as well. Cornerback you talked about, Zy Alexander release. So these two going back at it. Maya Pritchett and Shamar Charles going to be going at it. And then got the fullback here, as well mentioned, Brady Russell, Robbie Oots. So you knocked it out of the park there, man. It's exactly how I saw it as well. Exactly how I saw it as well. Randall says also, I think Sharp leads the team in carries and yards. Very possible. Very possible. I think it's kind of an opened up right now as far as how the running back battle will go, how the utilization will go. There has been times where this offense in the past in Shanahan stops has been relying on just kind of one bell cow back to carry basically all of the load. There's been other times where it's been more of a triumvirate and you get three-headed attack going at you and a variety of different guys being brought to bear. Certainly with Sharps, I think the thing that really does help him out is probably a bit more of the availability side. With Kenneth Walker, there's that just, can he stay healthy? Is that in his bag, or is he just always a guy that's kind of dinged up? And with Sharps, I think you got a little bit more of that ability to kind of sustain yourself a little bit, which, best Best thing is availability sometimes. So I could certainly see it, Randall. The kid's got a lot of talent. Gets forgotten about a little bit sometimes with him because he gets lost in the shuffle, but there's a reason they made him a second-round pick. Randall, thank you for another $2 donation. Says, what if Murph outplays LW? Leonard Williams, slide Leonard Williams to the nose tackle? No, I would tend to think, Randall, that you're able to, over the course of the game, the way you want rotational snaps to work, you can split Leonard Williams and Murphy's snaps up 50-50. And you're gonna have plenty of snaps for both of those two players to be maximally productive. Hell, you might even have to get a couple of more snaps in there for a few other 3-tech snaps in there for a guy like Jaron, even on top of that. So it's not an issue. Remembering as well with this that Leonard Williams is getting to a point now at 32 where he's not a young buck anymore. So asking him to rock 60% of the snaps, let's say, if that's the role that he was playing prior from the 3-tech position, maybe it's better to start sliding him more into that 50-50 spot in the name of preservation, in the name of keeping him healthy over the course of the season and recognizing a little bit of that age. So there's plenty of snaps there to be had with Murphy. The key with it really comes down to Randall is Jaron came in to take those snaps mainly last year. So Jaron did some 1-tech stuff, but the majority of his snaps were then flexed over to really then being that number 1 backup off the bench there for Leonard Williams. So he really ate up that backup snaps there that Murphy should be taking up this year. And that's where you think the easy transition would be you just pop over Jaron Reed into the nose tackle role, move him back to what he was in college as a nose, as a 1-tech, as a 0-tech, and then you just bounce Murphy over into his spot and just have him take back over that role. I think that's what the team is going to do, but it'll be something worth watching. You never know. You never know. DJ says, thank you, DJ, for the 2 donations today. I appreciate you for that. You wouldn't do a deal for Reek at 4 years, $96 million, $86 million guaranteed. Oh my gosh, you're almost guaranteeing the whole deal? No. Not on a 4-year deal. Nobody gets fully guaranteed. You're guaranteeing like 90% of the deal at that point. I can't do that. So what you've done, I see what you've done, DJ. So DJ's gone essentially and said, okay, Reek, we'll come back at you and we'll give you only $24 million per year versus the $30 million per year, but we'll give you 86 million of the 96 million. Let me say it again. We'll give you 86 million of the 96 million of the total of the deal guaranteed. And the problem I would have with that, DJ, is just really simply down to one thing, well, 2 things mainly. I still think that the difference between paying a guy 24 versus paying him 30 isn't a substantial difference. And you're still then at a pickle where once you have Devin Witherspoon come up to be paid, you have 2 cornerbacks that are making right around that. You have one at basically 25 million and another at 30 million. So $55 million of your salary cap is going to your 2 cornerbacks. And I would say that I don't think that that's a smart way to go, for the main reason being that Mike Macdonald goes so much more against the old frame of mind when it comes to this defense, being that he is not like Wink Martindale. He's not going to be playing a lot of man-based coverage concepts. A lot of what Macdonald does is it's built-in zone stuff and having smart zone defenders. So it's less on needing an athletic super freak that can just lock a guy down end to end. So it's kind of like this defense is well suited to be able to get by on the outside with the corner situation and have the difference makers be your front 7 guys. Your difference makers be your safeties. Like that's how this defense is kind of well set up to be like that. And so it's nice to have the lockdown corners. It's just not as much to me as the requirement. And I think that from a load balance perspective, DJ, that it's just not going to probably make quite sense to the team to do that at that cost. But I see what you're doing there, and you're on the right road with like, okay, if you're going to get a discount, then you're going to have to give him something back. I like that you did that there where you put a carrot on the deal and said, okay, we'll give you more guaranteed money. But there's no general manager that's going to be willing to guarantee that much. They might guarantee 60% of it, but they're not going to go up to 90% of it. That's probably a bridge too far. Yeah, you're right at 90% of his deal. Wow, I nailed that one. That 90% was right on the button there. So that's 90% of the deal guaranteed, and I just don't think that the team would be willing to do that. Now, you were asking if I'd be willing to do it. I wouldn't either, though, for the same reason as the team. If Reek had been consistent all 3 years, if his engine had always run at maximally hot, and I felt like he was always locked in. If he hadn't been disciplined and sat down for the first series of the game against the Minnesota Vikings because of something to do with off the field issue with the team, or something to do with the team that was a misstep on his part, maybe I'd be somewhat open to that. But if I'm giving that kind of deal out, you need to be true blue as a player. You need to have no kind of black marks on the record. You need to have no snaps. I don't need to have a collection of snaps where I'm watching you make business decisions. And that'd be the real worried thing I have about Reek, is there's a lot of snaps with him I could run in collection, one after the other, showing business decisions being made. And obviously so. And that's hard to be given a player like that guaranteed money. That's a player you want hungry. That's not a player that you want well satiated and just sitting there fat and happy and like Al Bundy back in the day, stuffing a finger, hand down in his pants. And, oh yeah, that's good. That's good. Unbuttoning the top, button on his pants. He's not the kind of guy I'd want to have that being done with. Randall with a $2 donation says, I think Olave can be had. Nola, no bueno. It may be that they offer him. I've heard no rumors out there presented that he's on the table for them. They don't have a lot there from the wide receiver position if they move off of him, Randall. The Saints were really heavily driven by having to address their offensive line in the draft. They lost Marquez Valdes-Scantling, which isn't, I know, like a huge major loss. But they had to come back and take a quarterback in the second round there with Tyler Shock. Defensive tackle then they add on day 2. So they're not sitting on anything really right now, Randall, where their wide receiver core's got much there at all. And I agree with you that we were talking a little about this yesterday, that they probably should do it. They probably should be in sell mode right now. But you have Rashid Shaheed, and then behind him it's Kevin Austin and Mason Tipton. And then you have Brandon Cooks at like 39 years old as your starter on one side, and then Olave over there with backups like Bud Means and Dante Pettis and Cedric Wilson Jr. and Donovan Peoples-Jones and a guy named Moochie Dixon. Yeah, that's a real name. A guy in New Orleans Saints roster named Moochie Dixon at their wide receiver position. So that cupboard is bare if they let go of Olave, Randall. I mean, they are. That's not just a signal to them that you're tanking. You might as well offload everything at that point. Like, send it all out the door. I don't think they'll do that. They've got too much conviction, Randall, in their heart with thinking that they can make something happen every year, and especially with that division just being so open. If somebody else was on more lockdown that division, it might actually push them to do something like that. But that division's like the AFC. What is it? The AFC North, AFC North, where it's like everybody's got a chance, everybody's got a shot. Stewart says, Oots is Larry Zonka's love child. Meet you in the B-gap, son. Yeah, if we get Terry, I'm with it. Terry McLaurin. I do agree, like Brian Myers says. I don't know if I just can't see how Washington does that. This is a year where they've got to be thinking like, we can do it this year. We caught lightning in a bottle last year. I mean, they're kind of on like a similar trajectory from a spirit standpoint of like where the Hawks were in 2012, where it's like they came up out of nowhere and everybody kind of was surprised by them, but they were by the next year, it's like, well, they're legitimate now. You got to pay attention to this team. JL says, word on the streets is Kubiak handpicked Oots. And when I say streets, I mean, I read it in an article. Nervosa's Jerry Old, Glory Hole Jones. I know why they're going away. They're fun. You don't know what you're going to get. It's like when I was a kid. We get cereal box and you, what's the toy at the bottom? I don't care about the cereal. Feel the same way about them glory holes. I don't know what's in there. What could it be on the other side? I don't know. You guys says, I already hear the fans when he says gets the ball. Oots. Oh, you are, man. They're going to do the oots for sure. Well said. Oots. Benelli Brando, we need to trade for one more interior offensive lineman, preferably some all-pro somewhere. Hey, sign me up, Benelli. I'll pay all the draft capital if someone's offering it. I would reckon to guess, though, that, that phone line is pretty quiet. But if it's possible, man. The Washington whatevers. King says, I think we can get Mafe for 17 to 19 million probably, but it would be shorter, 2-year extension, so he gets back on the board. Maybe. I think with him, because he is a little bit of an older player, King Bomber, this may be the contract he knows he has to go hit the 4-year on. But maybe. Possibly. Dallas Cowboy Jerry also called him Michael Parsons. We were dying here in Dallas. 2 1s. Come on, be cool, Brandon. He's calling him Michael Parsons. That's what I said. I said Micah. You said Micah. You said Michael, Dad. You said Michael again. I told you don't call him that, Daddy. Don't. You're going to make him mad again, Daddy. I'll make whoever I want mad, all right? I'm paying that man $250 million. I'll call him Michael. I'll call him Michelle. I'll call him whatever the hell I want to call him. I'll call him Daisy Duke. For all I care. He got $250 million of my money. He can listen to the words I call him. He can listen to my nicknames. I call him overpaid right now. How about that? Don't say that again in public, Daddy, today. We're going to the media. Don't be saying that now, Daddy. I ain't going to say that, son. I've been at this too long. Come on now. Daddy, you're going to do it. I know you will. You always got to say some stupid shit, Daddy. Why don't you go have yourself a burrito? You look hungry. Dad, don't make the joke about my weight again. You looking real hungry, aren't you, boy? Huh? Too bad we don't got a guy in the open market named Steak Jones. Be signing him tomorrow, wouldn't you? I'll do a 1 plus you get a pick of the edge. I'll maybe throw a kicker pick in. But it's going to be 43 mil. You got to understand, we got to come out of pocket big time here. The Michael Parsons Project. I can't do the 2 1s. Brian says, honestly, I don't think you ever really know what you're going to get. Anthony Richardson was worshipped, and he's had a lot of problems with this game. Milroe might be the opposite for all we know. Very true, man. One thing is for certain, to your point, Brian, when it comes to quarterbacks, say nothing of the likes of folks like myself that are amateurs at best in our outlook of trying to evaluate these guys, the pros get it terribly wrong. The pros can't see it clearly. And that just tells you that there's definitely a bit of a crapshoot to it, for sure. CJ says, Brando, 2 seasons ago, Nwosu was not elite, but he was in the very next tier. In my opinion, do you think he can return to that form? Yeah, absolutely I do, CJ. I mean, health will be it's a little bit like Walker, where these guys are on the field. I know what they can bring. I know the productivity that they offer. It's just the health thing is the big question. And, it wasn't his fault last year, CJ. The dirty hit thing was not, him being injury prone. It's not his fault. The guy basically almost took his career out on that play in the preseason. I mean, it was wild. So I agree with your assessment of it, CJ. I saw him in the same manner, and yeah, I do. And what I like about it too is he's starting to get a little older as a player. Is you're able to keep his snap count under control with these 4 edges and allow these guys to maintain a level of freshness in their play to where they can go 100 miles an hour every time they're on the field. They don't have to save themselves on snaps or take snaps off to catch the breath. King says, got to pick one or the other, and I'm picking Spoon. Yeah, I think that's the way it's going to go. Kirk says, trade Woolen to the Raiders at the trade deadline for a 2nd-round pick. Maybe a possibility there. We give the Raiders an appeal and maybe an option here on the table if you can get an extension done and you don't intend to get the extension done. There is obviously a way you could play this on the compensatory game where, you can get a 3rd-round pick back, but if somebody's going to give you a second for the upcoming draft immediately, maybe a way you can go with it. Nagasa says on the Mafe versus Karlaftis has 6 more sacks and 8 playoffs and is 2 years younger. Good points on the playoffs. I think there is a little bit of the aspect that Mafe can't really do anything about that a bit. I think he got into one playoff game, has always had the opportunity, whereas Karlaftis got to go to the Chiefs on that side of it. So the part that is worth noting on this, Nagasa, is when I talk about there being a difference in the run defense between the two of these guys, there is a big run defense difference between the two of these guys on tape. And specifically just how good Mafe is versus Karlaftis, who's just kind of all right. And let me try to give you a representation on this. I'm not trying to make PFF the end all be all with this, just that this is a little bit of a way to kind of, I think, give you an idea on this just a tiny bit. So we've got here, here's your George Karlaftis run defense scores by PFF throughout the course of his career. You can see the tackling numbers are not good for him. Starts out at 25.9 on his tackling scores, but then you can look over there too, Nagasa, at the run defense scores, 43.5, 58.2, 56.6. So a little below average as a run defender by the metrics of NFL circles and how that goes. And as a pass rusher, he's not lighting the world on fire. You can even see with the grades there, right? 69.5, 66.3, 58.7. You've got 37 hits, 48 hits, and last year, 32 hits. Hurries. Sorry. Keeping in mind that the Kansas City Chiefs play up ahead a lot because of how good their offense is too, partly with this, but and how good the rest of the defense is there to put him, give him these kind of, he gets a lot of opportunities to rush the passer is kind of what I'm saying. So let's go look over at Mafe and see how his scores match up. And what you'll notice here is that right out the gate, aside from the 2023 season, his tackling numbers have been better than Karlaftis. And you can see with the 72.6 initial grade, 61.3, and 77.8 grade, all 3 years of Boye Mafe's career matched up against George Karlaftis, he has been a supremely better run defender. Karlaftis might be a little bit better of a pass rusher, and the 2 years younger part's valid, but Mafe is a much better run defender. Like, fairly significantly better as a run defender, like a top 10 run defender edge in the sport, or pretty close to that, I would offer you. And Karlaftis is nowhere near that. So that's also part of that balance being there, Nagasa, a bit, is that does factor into this as well. And I think it does kind of just all come out in the wash, noticing as well the hurries the past 2 years with Mafe are right in alignment with Karlaftis. Last year, Karlaftis had 33 hurries, Mafe had 36. And that's in a year where we're all going, oh, we'd like to get a little more pass rush at him, but he's right there with it. And don't think his agent and his people aren't going to present these very same numbers to the Seattle Seahawks front office during those contract negotiations. So it's, on the surface of it, I'm with you, Nagasa, completely on this. Like, on the surface, it's like, dude, he's not worth that amount of money. I don't want to pay Mafe that amount of money. But it's also like, there is a keen difference at times between where the market's at and what the price is and inflation rates. And you know, this guy gets paid that, you're the next one up. You've hit enough of these markers. You're going to be the next guy to be paid up at that mark. You're not going to have to take backward steps or be paid a significant less amount than that guy next to you who's right in kind of same alignment. But we'll see. It'll be fun to watch, Nagasa, and see how it plays out. We'll learn soon with, kind of both these two players. Trey Osborne, I seriously want to see the Seahawks recreate the Legion of Boom with Nick Imawari at safety. Bam, bam, Cam will be ecstatic when that happens. That would be very cool. And boy, having Cam around the building, Trey, I love having that with a legend like that around the facilities. And, if you ever get safeties like this in there, they've always got that, I think, as kind of a resource that you can reach out to, which is very cool. King says, trade Reek, let Kobe and K9 walk, extend across and Mafe. I could see it going that way. King says, paying 2 of any position except for O-line and D-line is always a bad call. I think I'd feel the same way kind of with it. And I'd be with Kobe Bryant, give him an extension too, King, if not for the fact you have Love on the roster, but Love's done doing what he's done. And Love gets really expensive after this year. His cap costs go from having $6 million to going to like $13 million. So it's We've kind of learned with the Diggs Adams situation, just like receivers or cornerbacks, you can't really pay two top of the market guys and expect that you're going to be able to load balance the rest of the roster properly. Addicted, hey Brandon, hey 12s. Before 2025 regular season starts, will Cross, Lucas, and Zabel be locked in for 2026 and beyond? If yes, would upgrade of right guard now be sweeter than a new edge? Hard to say on the Lucas side because we still don't know where his health's at. Addicted, and I would agree with you. Like I'm, if you get a guard, that certainly is much more of a need, much more of an impactful piece to add than going and getting an edge right now. But it's more about, I think when we lean to edge and talk about edge, it's just we think that that's the position that will be available, that there might be a guy out there for that. Whereas I don't know if there will be for the interior of the offensive line. It's become more and more valued. And if you've got a good one, you're not letting them go, even if you happen to have a bad team, even if you happen to be in kind of sell mode addicted. Leads me to believe that there just isn't a deal out there to be had. But I would jump on one if there was. He says move the DeMarcus and Nwosu money to Mafe and Hall, essentially. Yeah, you could do that. Got some flexibility of different directions you can go on that, how you want to roll it. Costas is drafting 2 running backs in the back end in the second round without a good O-line was definitely a decision. That's when you just hope desperately, Nagasa, that the organization has really learned a big, hard lesson on that one, huh? You know, okay, you did it. You did the thing. You tried something. You tried the flip off the high board, and you tried to work it into the swan right at the end, and you almost broke your neck. So we learned a lesson on that one. It's like Malik McDowell, you know, you're gonna go for the most dangerous character risk in the draft. Can't be surprised when the ATV lands on his face. So hopefully they've learned on that one to gossip, but man, I mean, you never know. Yeah, Misfit, K9 is really special. I agree. That's why I say I think he's one of my breakout players. It just, if he can stay healthy, he's got it. The system's in place. The blockers will be good enough. I think you're going to have the commitment to the run that you need. Not being used inside so very often, not having the penetration into the backfield so very often. All of these factors work in conjunction to me to him having his best season as a pro. But just if he can stay healthy, that's the only key that needs it to happen. Herbicide, what did Watt go? JJ Watt, I think he went round 1, like 16th-ish, middle of the first round, and then his brother, I think, went more later in the first round. Nick says Ravens tagged Linderbaum. I was looking at their cap, and they have $15 million this year and are projected to have about the same for 2026. I don't think Baltimore would trade him, but man, that would be perfect. Hard to see them moving him. Definitely hard because he's been so good right out the gate for them, and a big part of making that line go there, especially with Ronnie Staley getting older there and some other questions at other parts on that line. But to your point, they don't have a lot of space, I don't think, moving into the future, so they might be caught in a little bit of a tough situation. That's the only way that door opens, Nick, is if the cap pushes them in a way that they just can't get the deal signed for them. So they're like, well, all right, just going to have to roll this other way. Jeffrey Thistle, thank you for the $2 donation. Says, remember when we signed Eddie Lacy with the fat boy clause? Oh, yeah. Feast mode. That was my favorite nickname for Eddie Lacy. And yeah, I will tell you, I got a lot of sympathy for life for a lot of people with a lot of different plights, but there is one plight that I have no sympathy for, and that is the pro athlete that can't keep themselves in shape. It's the most ridiculous thing conceptually that you can imagine. The amount you have to run and work out naturally, that you're just obligated to do so just by natural, like you've got to be stuffing your face constantly or just drinking a ton of beer, just ingesting calories by the boatload to get yourself fat. And the fact that you don't have the self-control to do it when your pro career is so short, especially in pro football where they're extra especially short. Yeah, just ridiculous, Jeffrey. Just ridiculous. So those things, if you got to put a fat clause into the contract for a given player, probably not the right player for you. Probably should just move on. Yeah, Jim Campbell, that O-line, Wyatt Teller there with the Browns, that was as dirty a cheap shot as I think I saw last year of any player. I mean, that was, and to be in preseason when it happens, ugh. Jeffrey, thank you for another $10 donation, Jeff. Appreciate you for that, brother. Says, it feels like we're going to be spinning our wheels until we find our next Russ or that kid that plays for the Redskins. What would Pete be if he hadn't hit on Russ? Probably spinning our wheels for 10 years. I think it's a good question. If that you hadn't gotten Russ, if that hadn't hit, who is the quarterback you are going to go to if not that? And I would say for sure, Jeffrey, it definitely would mean a few more years it would take for you to finally find some footing to becoming elite versus the quick turn to elite that you got once Russ came in. It's possible. It's possible that you're spinning your wheels in the next few years, and there's a reality this could happen. I think that's kind of a possibility for almost any NFL team out there just about that doesn't have their quarterback in place who can kind of carry the day. And there is only so many quarterbacks that can kind of carry the day. I think there's a few things that make me have less of a fear for that, Jeffrey. First off, when we talk about landing your next Russell Wilson like the Seahawks did when he came in and got him to Super Bowls, is that Russ wasn't the Russ of his prime era. Russ wasn't an MVP-like player. Russ wasn't like a top 5 level quarterback for his position when he walked in the door in 2012 and 13 and 14. He was a good player. He certainly was, in the top 12 of the sport in those first couple of years. But I think when we're talking about trying to go out there and locate a guy that's a top 5, like you say, would be a Jaden Daniels that elevates that place, or a Burrow, or a Mahomes, or Josh Allen. When you're looking at these rarefied air guys that are there, they are hard to find. But our team 10 years ago got there without a guy having to be one of those rarefied air guys. Russell had a special thing to him at that time, but of course that team was as much driven by the Legion of Boom and Marshawn Lynch in the run game. So it's to me, I always come back to saying, like, if you had structured up this team around having to have a quarterback win the day, yeah, there's a good chance you're having to spin the wheels. But this very offense we're putting in right now, Jeffrey, this very offense we're implementing right now, just had a quarterback that was Mr. Irrelevant, who was a 7th round pick that got to the Super Bowl and pushed the Chiefs to the brink in that Super Bowl of winning a Super Bowl. It's as bright to me as an example as you can see of a situation where this is what this offense can do. This is what this offense is capable of generating for its quarterback position, meaning it's such a quarterback-friendly offense that it's not a requirement that you have to have the superhero to go get it done. And in a lot of ways, it can do it on its own if you got the right parts and pieces around the QB to make that go. So I think there's just less of an onus on that need for that to happen. I don't disagree with you that you're always on the lookout. You want to find that thing, but I also think that this is a place we're looking at where the NFL is right now, and maybe it's different 3 or 4 years down the line. But with more of the driving back, Jeffrey, to the running game, with the way that the cover 2 shell has reduced down the passing functionality, as scoring offenses has kind of gone down the past couple of years. This trend just leads that much more further back to the team-centric nature of things really driving the day. And that, having a quarterback that is the superhero maybe becomes less of a requirement with that. So it's Just kind of my outlook on it, but I get where you're coming from with it. And it may be the place that they find themselves, kind of sitting with that when it's all said and done. We'll definitely have to see. Thank you though, man. Appreciate the donations. Very, very kind of you, Jeffrey, as always. A big time contributor to this channel for many years here. I really appreciate you, brother. Oh, and another $5 dono. Thank you, man. Says, we've been a defensive team first my whole life. We've always been above average as a team. Only been a playoff team when we've had a top 5 quarterback. Well, I would push back, I guess I would say, against that Russell Wilson was a top 5 quarterback in 12, 13, or 14. I think Russell Wilson was a top 5 quarterback in 2016 and 2017 and 2018 and 2020. I think he was absolutely a top 5 quarterback. But I think if you're looking at his average rating through that 3-year period, he's probably about a top 10 quarterback for how he was playing at that time. I mean, that wasn't an offense where he's going out there and just, lighting it up every week. And there's a lot of weeks where they were just kind of getting by, offensively speaking. Or they would have like one quarter they'd be dynamite and 3 quarters they weren't getting anything done. So I think that's the part we kind of forget about with Russ is we remember what he was in his prime there at that spile. But when he did come in those first couple of years, it wasn't just Russ instantaneously at the height of his powers, and he was that way from the rip. He was a guy like all quarterbacks who had to go through his maturation process to kind of master some things to get to his best form, as every player does. And when they eventually get to their prime and they're 28 and 29 and they got all the mobility of their youth, but all of the wisdom of having played in the league for a few years. So it's just the way it naturally goes for all guys. But you proved to me, Jeffrey, 10 years ago that you could get the job done without having to have a top 5 quarterback. You went to back-to-back Super Bowls without having to have a top 5 quarterback. I think I can name 5 other guys in the sport during that period of time that were beyond Russ. Even in the case of a guy like Matt Hasselbeck, was Matt Hasselbeck a top 5 quarterback when you got to the Super Bowl in 2005? Or was he more of like a top 10 quarterback? I would probably offer, from my perspective, I would look at it as Matt was more of a top 10 quarterback. So I just based my feeling on this, Jeffrey, being that you've been to 3 Super Bowls in the last 20 years. All 3 of those times you went to the Super Bowl, you had a quarterback that was at their best a top 10 guy in the sport, not a top 5 guy. And so if you've done it 3 times over in that period of time, to me, it just feels like there's certainly a validity behind the fact you could do it again in the same kind of way and manner, especially if you're consciously building your offense to not need the quarterback to have a huge load, to not be voluminous in your number of passing attempts, to have a defense that can hold up their end, to have a dynamic special teams that can be great in what they do on their side of it. You put that all together to me, and that's a recipe that can work. That's a recipe that's worked here. I feel like it can work again. It's hard to create those conditions. I'm not saying it's easy, and I'm not saying there's a guarantee they will do it with this, but I'm just saying that these conditions have worked before. This recipe has turned out a real nice meal for us once before. I get where you're coming from, though, Jeffrey. I do. I thank you, too, the donation. CJ says, at a certain point with the edge rush, I'm okay with trusting in potential versus past production. Hendrickson's a fine player, but with coaches like McDonald, the ceiling has to be higher with Maffei and Hall. It's fair. If it says ascending players are better than declining, aging players. Very fair as well. You guys are on it as usual. Herbicide says, extend Kobe, let Love walk. Bet Kobe would be cheaper. Kobe will probably be coming in on like about a 10-year deal, be like a 3-year, $10 million, 3-year, 30, 3-year, $35 million deal, something like that. It's a way you could go. I just think Love has become such a good player and a leader on that defense that they wouldn't do it Herbicide. And yeah, he does get it more expensive this year. So when you extended Love, you had the first 2 years of the deal on that extension being really low at like $6 million, and then it jumps up to like 13 in year 3. Soon says Cam has a higher raw score than Alexander. Not so fast on just a camp body call. Ryan, what's up, Brandon, everyone? Sorry, I've been distracted the last 6 months. Oh, it happens to the best of us, but do you have a record prediction yet, Brandon? Yeah, I'll go 11-6. 11-6. I feel good about that prediction. King Bomber says, I hope Bengals suck this year and Burrow requests a trade. That would be pretty cool. I think the Bengals might give him the middle finger because they'll be like, we signed Higgins and Chase so you wouldn't do this move, and now you're doing the move. And Bengals would be petty enough to be like, no. Everything just football. Brando, does Seattle take a chance and make a big splash for one of the two big name edge rushers that have not been given their extensions, Trey Hendrickson and Micah Parsons? I think that they're definitely in on the deals as far as paying attention to what's going on. With the Parsons one, you just don't know if the Cowboys are really in a position to really, really be willing to move him. I mean, that I still come down to Jerry just ends up paying his guys. He does a lot of belly aching. He does a lot of bitching, but he always comes back around to paying him usually. With the Hendrickson deal, today, Mike Brown said he felt like they were going to get a deal done. I would take that for whatever you will as far as the owner saying that there. But I think that we've got the cap space and where we're at, everything just football as it stands right now, to where we'd be silly not to at least find out what the cost would be and see if it's a situation to where we can find ourselves going, look, we got the money to give this guy. We don't mind that part of it. And if the draft compensation is not that crazy, why wouldn't we do it if it improves our team, if it makes us better? Especially if they have a lot of faith in this season being a season where they feel like they can contend. And I think we just don't know and have a good enough idea yet from the front office whether or not that's the way they have, whether or not that's their outlook for this upcoming season with this football team, or if everything just football, they're just in more of a wait and see approach, which also could be very possible. Jeffrey says, Darnold's a bum until he proves otherwise. 1 year doesn't make him good. He's got to prove it, man. I think so. Everything just football. What do you think on signing of Jadeveon Clowney? I would love to do it. Everything's just football. He's been a favorite of mine since he's come in the league. I love him as a player. He's had his best season of his pro career in Mike McDonald's defense with the Baltimore Ravens, and he's not going to cost a lot. The problem you have right now is you have 4 edges as it stands right now. So if you bring in Clowney, you're probably going to have to move one of your other edges. And who is that? Which guy do you want to do that with? I don't know. You're not really in a position with Uchenna or DeMarcus Lawrence to move them and save contract space by doing so. So it has to be one of your youngsters. And how do you want to make that deal work? There's maybe a market opportunity here if there's an outlook by the front office. I'm not saying they look at it this way, but if their outlook of it was that we don't look at Mafe or Hall or one of the two of them as long-term options and long-term viable options. So we'll just move one of these guys now and bring Clowney in and move them for an asset that we can use to something else down the road. I've thought that that's kind of a creative way they could have gone about this potentially, but hard to say because we just don't know where the front office's opinion quite is at as it stands right now when it comes to Mafe and Hall. It is a little bit of a question mark. Hash slinging slasher. Hey, Brandon, I saw that some Bronco fan think they won the Russ trade because they're in a better position now than Seattle is. What is your opinion on this take? They're in a better position than us based on the fact that they got to the playoffs last year. You know, I know you're not saying this, Hash, but that would be their thinking on it, is that because they made it to a playoff last year, that means that they're in a better position than us. Which I think is silly. I think that we tend to play in the toughest division in football on pretty much a yearly basis. And I don't think anybody has said that the AFC West has been the toughest division in football for probably 40 effing years. So because they had this 1 year that I don't know I don't buy into that, first off. Number two, it's completely about cope, because that's not the way trades work. They're not about, we're in a better situation. It's about, did you give us way too much assets and get way too little return back? And the answer is yes. With the Broncos, because if we want to play this who's in a better position game, well, let's really play it, Hash, right? Would your Broncos be in a better position today if you hadn't have made the Russell Wilson trade? Yes. Yeah. So it's a silly exercise, and it's just a coping mechanism, because you know that you're going to have a top 5 all-time trade where your organization's going to look silly as shit, and there's no excusing it. Especially when you consider that you gave all that draft capital up and then you gave the guy a contract before he had even played it down. No, we won. We won. Team Bomb are going to be so tiring to call Burrow trash year round. King Bomber, I'd take Arch in a Seahawks uniform, man. Herbicide, we got GSN. We'd be all right. Who the Niners have again? Remind me. Ricky Pearsall. Cabo Boys. Brandon McDaniel. Thank you for the $5 donation, Randall. Appreciate you. He says, today proved owners should avoid interviews at all costs. Jerry, obviously, also Cincinnati owner on Shamar Stewart, said team needs protection because player beat a woman. Oh, I didn't see that he had mentioned that part on top of it. Oh my gosh. Is there nobody that can get to these owners? I guess when you get to the point, you're a billionaire, you're the owner of an NFL franchise, like nobody can tell you anything. Like you can't tell me nothing. I mean, the ego just must get so out of control by that point, because these guys go off half-cocked, and it would seem to take the simplest of conversations to be like, okay, Jerry, we're going to have an interview today. All right, let's have the interview. All right, we got some subjects we want. Here's some things I want you to avoid going into. Here's the way you're going to say this. Here's what you're going to want to say. What? I'm just going to say what I'm going to say. Yeah, but we're trying to keep the negotiations on this conversation would happen. So that conversation either is not happening or it's happening, and the owners just say, yeah, I don't care. And in which case, why? Why wouldn't you care? Is the point, is there some point of pride within this? Like Jerry today, it's like, what is the point of you having that whole clip of what you said, Jerry? Like, what is that? And Mike Brown as well. Do you think that you're bringing people over to your side? Do you think people go, oh yeah, you can't pay Micah Parsons. Oh, you just made a great congruent argument in saying that, well, he might get injured next year, so that's the reason that you can't pay him any money. Because he missed 6 games last year. Oh, wait, no, he didn't miss 6 games last year. He only missed 4 games. But so then it completely comes off like you're being the slick snake oil salesman that he is. And that's why I give Jerry the hard time. It's like you can try to sometimes bury it in other stuff, but that's exactly what it is. You're trying to sell me snake oil. And Mike Brown sitting there with the whole, I didn't even hear the fact you mentioned the woman thing, but the violence on that, but just the whole first opening part where he's just like, the whole held up for the deal is some remote possibility that's not likely to happen. But then I wonder why we're holding on to that and why we don't just let that go. But then I'm wondering why he doesn't hold on to that and da-da-da-da-da-da. Dude, shut up, Mike. Shut up. You're gonna break this thing, but bad organizations are bad for a reason, Randall. When you look at the Bengals and the Cowboys organization, if Bengals hadn't have lucked into Burrow, they'd still be the dregs of the NFL, of the whole NFL. I mean, he's basically has saved that franchise in so many ways. It's wild to watch, Randall. It is wild to watch these owners. And if I was owner, I would be very careful about everything I say. There'd be no just going off, just going to freelance here a little bit. Stay with me, boys. Alpha says, Zy Alexander getting waived was a shock. Knew he wasn't a great athlete coming out, but I really liked his tape. I think the ACL injury just made his average athleticism even worse. Very true. Yeah. He was one of those guys I was looking at as targeting that could really make the roster, could maybe make some noise, had some true ability on the football field, pretty good tackler. But sometimes those injuries just don't bounce back from him, or it's just going to take you a little bit more time to bounce back from him. When you're an undrafted rookie guy, you just aren't being given that time from the team to get it figured out in that way. Stuart says, I feel people are downplaying the Darnold the same way they downplayed Geno until he showed what he could do. Yes, he had a great crew to throw to, but he was playing at a top 10 level last year. Agreed, Stuart. I'm where you're at with it. I mean, when we had Geno walk in and become the starter, he had less in the reservoir recently than what Darnold did. In Darnold, you have a full season of him doing that last year. In Geno, you just had the couple of starts that he had come in for Russell the year prior. And he had some moments he looked good, but he had the Steelers game where he didn't look all that good. So it wasn't like he was just out there, the definition of the guy that you'd want to move on to from Russell Wilson. Quite the opposite. So I agree with this, Stuart. I could see the same kind of trajectory taking into place. I think it's fair on both camps to say, look, he showed last year the realization of that talent that once made him a top 5 pick. And then for those that say, look, that is just 1 year though. That's not necessarily you've completely proven it either. But it is also not nothing. To your point, Stuart, guys don't just luck into those kind of seasons to 14 wins. And it's not like the Minnesota Vikings have been some preeminent powerhouse that's out there lighting the world on fire every year. They're a solid organization. They're pretty consistent, but he certainly took them to the best season that they've been at in quite a bit of time. Misfit says Love makes 13 and 15 million 2026, 2027. So why pay Brian 10 to 13 million APY? Love is top 10 easily. Yep. Yeah, I wouldn't pay Bryant that. I'm just expecting that's what Bryant's going to get on the open market, Misfit. Inflation rates, it'll have been 2 years since Love signed that deal. I'm anticipating Bryant's going to come off back-to-back solid years from the safety position, and somebody will give him somewhere in that territory. But I agree with you in that I wouldn't want to be the team to do that. I do think there will be a team. He'll be a street free agent who will be willing to at that point. Nick, the season Darnold just had would be a top 3 season any Seahawks quarterback has ever had. His own peers voted him 74 in the top 100 list. This is not the same I'm seeing Ghost Darnold with the Jets. Well said, Nick. Well said. Have we had a successful holdout since we've had fixed contracts? I don't know. What do you mean by successful holdout? Ryan says, I tell you what, last year was such a huge question mark for me. I had a 4-win floor to a 13-win ceiling. This year, I feel like we have an 8 to 9-win floor and a 14-win ceiling. Let's go, Ryan. Hell yeah, brother. Get me hyped over here. CJ says, I don't know how the Giants let Love walk in the first place. I don't know if they were in the greatest of cap situation at that time, CJ. I think that they had some extensions on deck that they needed to get signed up. And so, they just kind of kept it moving there. He's also ascended as a player. As somebody else mentioned above there that as Alpha's mentioned, he's gotten better as a player in Seattle. He is the best version of himself here. Phoebe, thank you for the $5 donation. You read what's the apparent holdup with Shamar Stewart that the Bengals owner won't give guarantees to someone for not having a jail clause? I guess it's that. I didn't know about this jail clause thing. I knew it was the guarantees aspect. I didn't know it was the guarantees aspect related to if something happens where he's in jail, then you can't come after the money, I guess. And that makes more sense when he's talking about a remote possibility at that point. But it seems kind of a silly thing to get held up on for what is your first round pick, for what is supposed to be a season after you've signed Burrow and Chase and Higgins, that you are trying to go for it this year and take that next step forward, and that you need vitally everything you've got on defense, every bit of talent that you have out there, you need out there. And yet you have them over here with a contract dispute in Hendrickson and a contract dispute in Shamar Stewart. This is not the way to a smart organization. This is not the way to a Super Bowl. And it becomes, what do you care about? Are you here doing business? Are you here for your profit margins? Are you here with your eye on the ball of other things? Or are you trying to win at the end of the day? Because it's completely silliness, feed me. I've never heard anything like this in my life on any contract negotiations holding it up in the NFL before. And if you had such worries about him as far as a malcontent or a guy that was going to be a problem off the field, then, don't sign him don't pick him. That's the whole point of doing your background check as a team in the first round is if you don't like the guy's background, if you got some worries on that, then go and pivot to the next player. So just all the way around, this looks bad from the Bengals. Just all the way around. There's no excuse. You just look bad. But they don't have a problem looking like a joke of an organization, and they're going to remain as probably a joke of an organization as long as they've got Mike Brown there as an owner. Thank you, though, Femi. Randall, thank you for the $2 donation, Randall. Odd, two of the best defensive ends are white dudes drafted in round 3. Yeah, a little strange with that, man. Little strange. I'm trying to think, who's the other? You'll have to tell me, Randall, what you mean on who's the other white you're thinking? Because TJ Watt was a first rounder. You might be thinking TJ Watt was you might be thinking TJ Watt was a third rounder, but he was a first rounder. Who are you thinking of? George Karlaftis? Well, he's a first rounder too. Yeah, I think you're thinking TJ was a third rounder. But he's a first. Thank you, Randall. CJ says maybe the Giants are just kind of dumb with safeties. They let Landon Collins go to Washington back in the day too. It's true. And Xavier McKinney was a godsend for the Packers team last year. So yeah, I mean that kind of tracks, doesn't it, CJ? It kind of fits. King Bomber, I get if you were going to the Bengals or something and they're going to scream and shout and yell before you get a decent contract. King, and I just think with the Arch situation that the reason the Manning family could say poo-poo no to Seattle, I don't think that's the same thing. First of all, I'll say this, King. It's not the same thing as the Charger organization and Eli Manning and the Manning family rejecting them. That had to do with an organization that tended to be very cheap with their money and how they spent. They're in a bad stadium with a future obviously set up that was going to be a little bit treacherous as far as getting new stadium, getting set up there. And then you just had an owner that had kind of a bad reputation throughout the league. Those three things are not what you're going to be facing if he comes up to Seattle. But the Manning family has shown a willingness, King Bomber, to pull that lever in the past. So they would be willing to pull it in the future. And the NFL would acquiesce to it if they did pull that lever, number one. Number two, it is a little bit of an East Coast family. And it may be that they also look at it like, look, that's not going to be what's best for his star, for his, brand going out to the Pacific Northwest. There's maybe a chance he'd accept it, but I would just think that there'd be a little bit of them willing to maybe push that because of that reason. But you never know. Yeah, I agree, Brian. I just think the NFL will work to accommodate it. I don't think they're going to hardline the Mannings. The Mannings come back, they're football royalty. If they're like, we're not going to Seattle. Get us out to the South, get us out to the East Coast. I think that the NFL will be like, yes, sir. Nick says, living in Denver as a Seahawks fan makes for some of the best sports talk dialogue. I bet. Feed me, thank you for the $2 donation. Does Cross contract go up with the Zach Tomlin contract? Probably sets it as a baseline. Feed me. Like that's the floor of where it's probably sitting, I would say. It's kind of about where it was going to be anyway. I think that they know what the numbers are going to be. It's just now whether or not Seattle wants from a timing front to get this deal done now, or they want more data and they want to see another year of it. They're willing to risk putting a franchise tag on him at the end of the year if he takes that next big step. I think the extension will get done, but we'll see. That is definitely, it's not going to be cheaper than that, feed me, right? It's definitely not going to be cheaper than that. So bare minimum, there's your floor, but probably a little bit more expensive. Jeffrey Thistle, thank you for the $2 donation and all of your donos today. Radio silence on Jalen Milroe front lately. Weird. It has been pretty quiet. People were getting hyped up in OTAs on that redefined throwing motion. It's all fixed. It's been solved. It's handled, Jeffrey. Taken care of. But it's been pretty quiet. He's busy, Jeffrey. He's been down in the bowels of Renton, down in the bowels of the VMAC. And he's just got the VR headset on. And he's been like just living with the VR headset on. He hasn't taken it off for 3 weeks straight, Jeffrey. 3 weeks straight. He's got the beard's grown out to here. He smells. There's food dishes over in the corner from them bringing him food. He's going to take off the VR headset. It's going to look like the Man in the Iron Mask face, hair matted, just got the goggle eyes going. This is at least what I hope. This is what I see in my mind as a hopeful reality. We'll see though, Jeffrey. Stewart says it would be ultimate example of human stupidity if their greed kills the golden goose. It has a tendency. It's done in the world many times in other industries and other places, man, Stewart. So it's the human nature of things that comes into play. Can't appreciate what you got. Just let's push you a little bit more. Let's turn it up a little bit more. A little bit more. A little bit more. A little bit more. Eventually, your Jenga falls. You pulled out one too many from the base. Mimi, thank you for another $2 donation. I'm confused why Will Levis waits for surgery now. Well, the arm injury ones can tend to be very, very hard to determine whether or not surgery is required or not. A lot of the baseball throwing injuries that you see out there, they don't just immediately go to the Tommy John. They're trying to see if it'll calm down, if it will just kind of heal on its own. There's a lot of that, it would seem like, an arm issues that happen where it's not always you just want to jump to surgery. So, and I think very much probably within surgery too, feed me, there's probably some fallout within that as far as maybe some downsides to it, some possible complications in doing surgery. So I would estimate that would be the reason. Maybe he was just like, I'm not going to play this year anyway, so might as well just go and kick back on a medical bed and eat some potato chips with some of my mayonnaise and chew on some whole bananas and call it a day this year. Might have been the way of the world. Randall says, what should we be saying about Milroe? There hasn't been any football. No news is good news in the offseason. Very true, Randall. This is the time of year you want things to be very quiet, and it has been very quiet for our Seahawks, and that is a very good thing. Hash, Slinging Slasher, do you think this will be Matthew Stafford's last year in the league? Now that the Rams have 2 first-round picks next year, it feels very likely they trade up for a quarterback. I do think, to your point on the second part of this, I think it's very, very likely they trade up for a quarterback next year. I almost but certain that they're going to be able to do that. I do think that there's probably about an 80% chance this year that Matthew Stafford is probably playing the last year of his career. I think that there are some conditions that could happen, though, that have him come back. So, if they go out again this year and they get into the conference championship game and they take another team to the brink, does Stafford look at that as a sign that he should retire? Or does that look at it like, man, we're right on the edge again of breaking through the other side of that. I'm going to give it one more go. We've had, from his perspective at that point, he'd have 3 straight seasons they'd made the playoffs, 3 straight seasons that they'd made noise in the playoffs, 2 of those seasons getting to the conference championship game. That would be a scenario where I could see Stafford kind of returning at that point. If they just missed the playoffs, he's probably retiring. If he gets in the playoffs and they lose in the first round, he's probably retiring. If they get to the Super Bowl and he loses in the Super Bowl, maybe a chance he comes back. So I think the odds are in that direction of it. I do, Hash, but I think that it's also, there are the potentials that could go the other way too. Oh, Randall, thank you for the update on the edge rushers. I forgot Max Crosby. I was looking that through the pass rushers, like, which was the other one? Was the other guy with the thing with the, it was it? And yeah, I think that those are two guys, in my opinion, Randall, that have a lot of similarities too for being the third round picks you talk about them being. First off, they've got pretty good size to them. They've got pretty good length to them that they bring to the table, which helps them. Especially helps them because both of those guys are technicians. And with becoming a technician, I think that that's ultimately about maximum repetition. And, you're the guy out there just 24/7 working on your moves and just grinding to get to a point of mastery. And that those guys have gone to that sort of almost psychotic level of training to master what they need to master to get to where they've gotten, that most players just aren't willing to go there. And it's sort of kind of like, Randall, it's like their size and length got them to be a third round pick, that got them in the door. But then the work ethic is what made them what they are. And you don't know in these guys sometimes when you take them in the draft if they're going to have that work ethic, if they're going to have that ability to refine that skill set down to become a technician, because it takes a lot. It isn't just you doing your job every day. It's you outside the facilities doing that extra stuff. And so this is what the teams hope when they're gambling on these guys, but this is why these guys go into that third round. They haven't yet gotten to the place of being the technician they'll become, but the length is there. The size is there. There's a little bit of some athleticism there you can work with around that. And you just hope within that work ethic that it's going to bloom around that. Hard evaluations at times in college, though, Randall. The kid out of Ohio State was a little bit like this in this way this year. He's not going to have the upside to me of a Crosby or Trey Hendrickson. But there's a little bit of that with him in his game, too. And you go, well, I mean, he's there's not a lot that jumps out in his game, but he's got some size, he's got some power, but yeah, he's a bit of a technician already. He'll continue to work hard. It's hard. It's tough. Free Thistle, thank you for the $2 donation. I'd rather have prime J.J. Watt over T.J. Watt. Yeah, I would too. Because J.J. Jeffrey, you could move him everywhere. And having that kind of game-wrecking force from the inside, like we got to see with an Aaron Donald, you're off on the edge out there and doing what you're doing, but there's times as an edge you're going to get washed out the back of the pocket because you just got too wide. Where those interior guys are they can be just so problematic, and you could just move them all over inside to find the mismatch you want to take advantage of. So I would too. That'd be a pretty easy one for me. JJ was, as you say, unstoppable in his prime, Jeffrey. I mean, he was just a manimal. Definitely a top 4 level defensive player in the last 30 years in the sport, for sure. King says, agreed on Arch, Brandon. Those reasons that they stated for not watching to go to the Chargers could have been a cover for not wanting to go to the West Coast. If that's the case, Arch dreams are probably dead. But Peyton did play in Denver, so maybe. It is possible. Don't forget, though, too, they were with that King Bomber. Remember the old plane on the runway story where Paul Allen literally flew his plane out onto the runway to go try to pick up Peyton to bring him to Seattle. And Peyton was like, no. Now, maybe Peyton also knew their King Bomber that little powder puff arm that was all topped out was not going to be able to throw through the wet, windy weather of Lumen Field, as opposed to going to Denver and being able to throw in the mile-high thin air, where his ball was going to be able to maybe maintain a little bit extra more time. He could get around some of the arm strength limitations at that point. But I do think if I'd be pressed to this and giving you an answer on this, I just think that if Arch got drafted by Seattle, I just don't think the Manning family would have him come here. I think that they would have dreams of him going to some place like Miami or something, or back to New Orleans and picking back up the lineage from Arch. I don't see them saying, yeah, we'll have him out in Seattle. But to your point too, Arch did kind of choose his own pathway on this one, whereas Bro went to Tennessee or not Bro, but Uncle went to Tennessee. Other uncle went to Ole Miss, he goes to Texas, kind of takes his own path with it. He's his own man. Maybe he's open to it. You never know. Maybe he's got a soft spot for Seattle. CJ says, I think the sentiment across the country sports shows that the Niners for sure are favorites over Seattle is silly. They have a crazy easy schedule, but we went 10-7. Put some respect on our name. That's right, CJ. Put some respect on my name. Yep. Niners are getting their share of love out there, and people just look at that schedule, and I think they just sort of shake their head, CJ. It is easy. I mean, this is as easy a schedule as I've seen in the NFL in maybe a couple of years. But still a very old roster. Still very top heavy. Space, yeah, Milrow is using the VR training. For show. Herbicide says, I heard Texas has somebody they might start over Arch. Ooh. That would be interesting. He's been such a patient guy behind viewers that now he gets a shot and you're going to come on in. So this fool named Danny Parker power ranked us 26th the league. Yikes. Wow, they're really selling. Gary says that if the Mannings take issue coming to Seattle, they're stupid, as we're one of the most consistently well-run franchises in the NFL. Yeah, I would say that I agree with them in doing it, Jeffrey. To your point, I think that if you're looking for good franchises for Arch to go to find success, that this wouldn't be a bad one to come to. But, throw into it as well, Jeffrey, of course, too. There's a little bit of the impending sale. Who's going to end up buying the team down the road? That doesn't help when it comes to that timeline of that a bit. But I agree. I don't think that there's any reason we shouldn't be looked at as one of the best franchises to go to for any prospect, But you know how that East Coast bias thing works, Jeffrey. You know how it works. It's deeply rooted. They don't like to admit it, but it's ever present. It's a reality, that's for sure. Feed me with another $2 donation. Thank you for that. Feed me. It's okay, B. Remember the Falcons gave him an extra first rounder. I know. God. And the Falcons, I just know, are not going to have a good year. Because they gave that first round pick to the Rams, just for that reason alone, I think they're not going to have a good year. Just so they can give the Rams a top 7-ish first round pick. Little Dallas Cowboys, it's the drama. Drives the fans emotional. Novella marketing. Ever since I remember, JJ has a different WWE storyline every week. Most profitable sports franchise in the world, so I guess he thinks he's right, or maybe he just is senile for the last who knows what. I think the senility is not to be understated, Dallas Cowboy. Any man that's tried to take the keys out of grandpa's hands knows, you're going to pull that thing from those cold, dead fingers. I can drive just fine. You almost hit a toddler last week, Grandpa. He didn't look both ways. But I think that it's a little bit of that, where I think people just can't tell anybody anything at that point when you reach that level of success. And, those Super Bowls he had back in the 90s buys him the, enough whatever at that point to get by, I suppose. But it does seem like it's more about the marketing, to your point. I think it's a bit of both of these. It's the senility that you speak to that I think is showing up. And then, because I don't think that the words out of Jerry Jones' mouth today about the situation with Dak and Micah, I don't think that that's a quote that he makes if Jimmy Johnson's in the house. So that's where I say senility's involved there a little bit, or just ego and hubris. But there is also, I think, the storyline element that you talk about, where it's also like, well, if we can't be good, we're at least going to be entertaining. It's like, no, Jerry. No. We're going to seek to be good. We don't care about entertaining. We want to be good. We got to fill up that stadium. That's Jerry's world. Jerry's world don't go empty. It's going to have to go empty if we want to be good. So I think it is, you're onto it with being a bit of both there, Dallas Cowboy. But it's all back to the same thing. Whether it's Mike Brown or Jerry Jones or Mark Davis with the Raiders. It's good he's bringing in Brady now for like 10%, but needs to kind of get out from it. Like, there's just certain guys you should know in football teams. And, what is Jerry Jones if he doesn't have Jimmy Johnson? Probably a guy that sells the Dallas Cowboys in 2010 2 if he doesn't have Jimmy Johnson. Probably owns it for 10 years and then gets out of it and back into whatever else. So, ego's a hell of a drug, I guess, Dallas Cowboy. But he could stand to take a little bit of humble pie at this point. Misfit says, if the NFL allows that to happen again, it's such a dangerous precedent. College players will all try to... Oh, wait, Ryan says, my biggest question mark right now is Woolen. I think this season will determine his career. Very well could. He's in a contract year. You're going to get him in his best shape, doing all he can. So, Mrs. If the NFL allows that to happen again, it's such a dangerous precedent. About Manning picking his own way. College players will all try and choose their own draft destinations. F them Mannings. I don't like it either, Misfit. I don't. And I don't think that the Mannings should be allowed to have this royalty status, to be given this kind of, carte blanche to sort of make that kind of dictation in the situation. I don't. But I'm also a realist. And I also understand that, if you've done it once, you'll do it again. And that was one of the more ballsy moves I've ever seen in my life, where they basically told the Chargers to get effed and we're not coming there. And I think even the Chargers still tried to draft him just to still see if they could just force it. And the NFL came in and said, and regulated it. And, the Manning family has only, since that time, Eli went on to win 2 Super Bowls. Peyton went on to win a Super Bowl after that. They've only more reinforced that royal lineage a little bit, even more so. And I just think that the NFL would be like, on top of, I think from the NFL's perspective, they kind of agree with the Mannings a bit on this one. Like, do we want Arch Manning in Seattle, or would we like Arch Manning to be with the New York Jets? Arch Manning in Seattle or Arch Manning down in New Orleans? Yeah. That's where interests would kind of align, I think. Little Dallas Cowboy owners like JJ, profit over wins. Yeah, and it's sad to see for me, little Dallas Cowboy. It really is. And I think it's one of the ultimate distinctions of greed that you can see out there. You're already unimaginably rich in order to just buy a team in any sport in the first place. Then every year you're getting a profit margin. Some owners get bigger profit margins, depends on what your overhead is, but everybody's making profit every year. And then down the line, when you eventually do sell the team, you sell it for a monstrous profit beyond what you paid for it. And that to me is the one where when you know that the down the line is coming to where you're going to make 6, 7, 8, 9 times of what your initial investment was into the team, the need for the yearly profit becomes lessened. And now it should be about putting the best product on the field, creating a winner, understanding how hard that is to do, and understanding how that becomes an impossibility if you're trying to serve the two masters of, I'm going to try to serve the two masters. We're going to be real profitable at every turn, and we're going to win a lot of games. Like, that's some child stuff right there, right? Emerald, do you have any highlights of Kitty receiving them salmon treats? We do the during the year prediction where I put Emerald Hayes, I put the salmon bowls at one end of the hallway, and I have her pick the bowls to pick the winners of the games. She did pretty good last year, by the way. But that's a good idea. I should probably get something like that put together. Jerry the content machine. Emerald Hawk should focus on the weak link of the team. Injuries are inevitable. Next man up is, if he's available, impact. K-Mac, MVP. Let's go, Emerald Hayes. Herbicide says, hope Arch goes to the Jets. We might get him 3 years later. Get all that growth stuff out of his system to where he's ready to roll by that point. Dallas Cowboy pushed the lever to the star Mannings. I could see Manning going to Dallas as a possibility too, but that's where, again, wouldn't that be the sad part there? Little Dallas Cowboys. Arch kind of would want to go there, but except for Jerry. And that's where you get really dark with ownership, where your owner is so bad that players don't want to come now there to you because of him. You talk about getting in the way. What's up, Dogzilla? How you doing, man? Is he in the house? Ryan Boston, the NFL is going to make sure Arch goes to the Colts. That's another possibility I could see. Jeffrey says, might get whatever was left out of Arch after the Jets have their way with him. A little sloppy seconds there, huh, Jeff? Dogzilla says, I've been distracted at Patty's nice nest in Puyallup. Well, that'll distract a man, I'll tell you what. Riverside wonder what happens with Anthony Richardson. I mean, that's come down to that work ethic thing, man. That's the part that we just can't ever seem to track with these players and know for sure. All of them can talk the good game. They all post a bunch of Instagram reels that shows them seemingly working at every turn. But you can fake a lot of stuff online. And we like to think all these guys love this sport and understand what's at stake and that they're going to bust their butt. They're going to do all they can. They want to be great and they're going to do everything they can to be great. But some guys aren't wired that way. And I get the impression a little bit with Richardson at this point that there's a bit of a question about whether he's wired that way. And didn't really see a lot of progression from him last season. I think the Colts have messed the situation up completely by trying to force him out there to start way too early in his career. But cat's out of the bag on that one. Can't do anything about that now. They're trying to set it up this year to give him as much of a chance, I think, as ever. It doesn't help when you lose 2 interior offensive linemen. I mean, that's going to hurt. They did give him a nice pass-catching target out there to work with, I think, in Warren. So, he's got a little bit more to throw to, I suppose. But I don't think it comes forward with that guy myself. Phoebe says, Hawks Nest, imagine being a coach watching your boss owner being a total idiot and making a fool of himself, but all you got to do is sit there and nod. Well, yeah, just look at Schottenheimer's face here at the opening of this clip.
Just because we sign him doesn't mean...
look at the face he's making as Jerry's about to speak. He knows something's coming.
Just because we sign him doesn't mean...
Look at that face.
Just because we sign him...
That's either a man who is taking a dump or his owner's about to say some silly stuff. Just because we sign him doesn't mean we're going to have... Watch his little eyes.
Just because we sign him doesn't...
Look at the little scrunch face he makes. Shut up, Jerry.
Just because we...
Just shut up. Don't say anything. Please. Stop speaking. Patty's Egg Nest is the best. The best. Next, as I've been saying, I can see the Dolphins starting off bad and cleaning house. Daniels and Greer gone. Tua and Hill as well. Tank for the first overall pick and end up being with Arch as a brand new staff. I could see it. Miami and Arch feels kind of like about a right spot there. That feels like a real spot that could be very viable as a landing zone. I agree with you. It's that front office, that general, the coach. This is the prove-it year for them a little bit, and they don't exactly have a roster that's really great for being in a prove-it zone. I mean, hell, you had Teron Armstead just announce his retirement. They're in a little bit of a tough bind out there with Miami this year, I think. Emerald says, what position on offense and defense do you wish the Hawks will address? I'd love to be able to address an offensive lineman, Emerald. If there's any offensive lineman out there that's worth his salt that we could go out there and find to take this unit up to more of a viable place. I would be really not picky. It could be guard or it could be center. And I would be all on board with that kind of move to help out this offense. Defensively speaking, there's not a lot of needs here defensively speaking because you're kind of set right. The 1-2 places I would probably point to is if I could get more of a difference-making edge, I would be in the market to do that. A guy that's, kind of more of a game-wrecking kind of player, if there's one that becomes available, or an upgrade at corner. But those would be probably the only 2 positions I'd really look to lock into. Everything else looks pretty good defensively. Ben says, I think it's time for Jerry Jones to retire and make his kid as the new owner. I agree, Ben. A day like this should be a day where Stephen Jones, you sit your dad down and you're like, Dad, this Everything you said today has nothing but a detrimental effect on the organization, on the negotiations for Micah. If we were to move Micah in a trade, your words today does nothing to help the value that we can maximize back in return for him. I need you to shut your mouth, Pa. I need you to shut your mouth. And, those patriarch type guys don't like to shut their mouth. I think that we know that for sure, but you're right, Ben. He should. You get into anything, like you're 85 years old. You just take a step back. We all have our time. We all got a good run. It ain't easy to reach that stage of things where you're like, it's been a good run. Now I just got to go sit on the couch and enjoy where I'm at right now. But I think that there's a sense of grace in doing that. And when you fight against it and you don't have the grace of recognizing that it's time, you end up looking kind of foolish. Kelly says, really hoping the best for Milroe. These running quarterbacks can be really special. They can. It is one of the great equalizers in the sport right now when you have a guy like this that can do what they can do with their legs. And there's not a lot of guys that are quite in this level that he is. You have a Josh Allen, a Lamar Jackson. There's not a long list here of guys that can do it like they can do it with a combination of arm and foot talent. Barry says, the original owner. It's good to see you in the house, Barry. Hell yeah. Hope you're doing well. The original owners of Patty's Eggs Nest were very good to me back in the day. Let me run up a crazy tab, but knew I'd pay them back. That is very kind of them. I'm going to have to hit me a little Patty Eggs Nest when I come back to Seattle in a week, man. Give me hungry for that. Brian says, everyone needs to remember that no matter how well he does and how well he's perceived by the league, he can stay in school. Oh, Arch. True. That is a little bit of especially if you know the number one overall team's one you don't want to go to, that's another way to kind of force it, right? And I think Peyton did come back for his senior year, if I'm not mistaken. Ryan Ball says a lot of quarterbacks get hurt too much. Russ was the smartest running quarterback. That's the part where we'll see with Milroe if he can be smart in his approach to that in that way. I think Jaden Daniels did a really great job of that last year too, Ryan, of being very protective in how he ran. Lamar, I think, can sometimes get a little wild with it. Josh Allen can sometimes get a little wild with it. There are those guys who don't seem to have the ability to kind of quite learn to always protect themselves, and it just comes down to how tough they can be essentially at the end of the day at that point, or that they don't get hurt majorly because of it. We'll see with Milroe. I don't remember much off the tape of him being a super slidey guy, but I also don't remember him being like wild with it either. And I will say with Jaden Daniels, he corrected his issues in a year, because remember, Ryan, with Jaden Daniels, there was that whole jackass cut-up film that you had of him in college just getting demolished in the open field because he wasn't sliding. He really fixed that through the offseason. Jeffrey says, I don't want to watch Tua die on the field. Man needs to end it before it ends him. If I was in his territory, you'd gotten paid, I'd probably be in the situation where I'd go, look, it's got to call the ball on this one. I mean, that guy barely could get tapped with a couple of fingers upside his head and he's going to get concussed. Jerry Jones looks like the Crypt Keeper. Hey, Brandon, let's hear the imitation. I don't like that. Crypt Keeper. What are you talking about? I'm a young man. I'm 85. 85 is the new 45, Herbicide. Okay? In Dallas, we don't age. We're like fine wine. We just get tastier. Okay? I know, because I was a young lady last night. Okay? Young lady of the night. She said to me, and it wasn't because I gave her $1,000 for every 10 minutes. It wasn't that. She said to me, you're aging like fine wine. Or it might have been cheese. She might have meant cheese. I don't know what it was, but she said I was aging right. And what she meant. That's the point. Dallas, good. Aging good. So I don't like your words, Herbicide. I don't like the way you mouthing off like that. Okay? Jerry's a young man in his heart. I'm a young owner. I'm a Super Bowl champion. I've got America's team. I got a stadium named after me. Named after me. It ain't Dallas's world. It ain't Cowboys' world. It's Jerry's world. Jeffrey, release the clowny. I'm with you, man. If BB, Hawks Nest, like when he said he was regretting signing Diggs so early and not signing him later, like CeeDee Lamb. Yeah, exactly like that. Exactly. Stuart says Jerry will retire a year after his funeral. Real talk. Real talk. Robert Pennington, the house. My brother's out here. What's up, bro? He says, drop a like for this beautiful man. He must have amazing genetics. I think we do. I think we do indeed, my brother. It's good to see you in the house, man. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're doing well. I get some Warzone going, bro, tonight. Dogs a little bit Washington go to the Orange Skins. It would be hilarious. Barry celebrating 47 months. Might be you or Washington Fist Quest got the longest time here, Barry. I think one of you two guys have got the longest roll. 47 long months as a Hawks Nest member. Let's go. Let's go. 47 months because no one does it better. Well, I appreciate you, man. You were riding with me on like the first 100 subs, I think, on top of being a long-time member of the channel, long-time subscriber. Like some of the original crew, Barry. Some of the original crew. And it's so great that you've run on here with me for so long in this way, man. It's been a hell of a ride, and it's been cool. You've been right there with me every step of the way, bro. Looking forward to this season with you, man. Hope you're doing well out there, and thank you, man. I appreciate you. It's good to see you in the house, Barry. Good to see you in the house, man. The Washington insurrectionists. Ben, I have a question. Should the Seahawks bring Russell Wilson back one last time before he is retired? I mean, you'll have him retire, Ben. He'll retire with like he'll do that thing guys do, like Phillip Rivers just did this today, where he retired as a Charger officially. So Russell will eventually retire with a one-day deal as a Seattle Seahawk, and it will finish up that way. I don't think Russell Wilson comes back here to start and play games. I think that there were probably some bridges burned on his way out of town with the front office, especially with general manager John Schneider remaining. That I don't think that John's going to sign up for wanting him to bring him back in that way. So but he will retire. He'll get the one-day contract. He'll retire and kind of do it that way. Barry says that Beth's Cafe is very good, but it's been at least a decade since I've been. That sounds familiar too. I think I once ate there too, but it feels like it's been a while. Ben says that sounds like Jerry Jones after 4 very high drinks at Texas Rodeo. Well, I'm enjoying life right now, man. Okay? I enjoy life. Dallas, we enjoy life down here. We win. We get dynasties. We build big stadiums. And we drink a lot of liquor. It's the way it is. It's how you live in Texas. I know you up in Washington with your high fluent pot. With all your little micro brews. We do it right down here in Dallas. That's why I'm so well aged. That's why I look like a frog. Bring him back for retired Seahawks. He'll retire as like that last day of he'll do that, they'll do that final day, and eventually they'll put him up in the Ring of Honor, Ben, and he'll probably eventually be a Hall of Famer eventually too. Brian says, hot take, Russ is a quarterback coach for Milroe. That'd be pretty cool. You could definitely probably show him about a thing or two. Stewards, it'll be cool with Bobby, Russ, and Lockett coming back for one day. Yeah, all of them will do that thing. One-day contracts, all of them Ring of Honor. In Bobby's case, you're probably going to retire his number. He might be the only guy of the Legion of Boom era that gets his number retired. We'll see. I don't want the green outfits ever again, man. The highlighter green, Jeffrey, no. Let's move on. Let's just go throwback city 24/7. And Herbie says his Bucks for the Hawks throwback might be the best looking unis ever. True. This year we're going to get the throwbacks in the Hawks-Bucks game. You're going to get those cool Buck alternative jerseys too. I'm looking forward to that one, man. That's going to look sharp. Boys are going to look sharp in that game. Sharp. All right. Well, we got 2.5 hours in today. We knocked out 4 hours yesterday. I think we'll probably put a bit of a button on this one at this point and call it good to go here. I might be back over on the Seahawks Nest on Twitch a little bit later on this evening. If you want to catch up with me over there on that side of it. We will be coming back at you with some shows here in the upcoming week point here as we go. Probably back on Sunday, bare minimum. We might be back on here throughout this week as we get some news from your Seahawks, especially the opening of training camp. We might get some percolations and rosterbations and things that we can discuss as far as what's going on with our Hawks at the beginning of training camp, which is going to kick off in just 2 days here on the 23rd. So keep an eye on the feed. I'll be coming back at you guys, letting you know what we're doing with that. If you can for me, do please hit that like button. I know it's like a big deal, but it's like a cool thing if you can do it for me, as it does help me show up. It helps all that stuff happen with the algorithms and all that. So if you hit that like button, maybe get subbed up if you get a chance as well. I do and would really, really appreciate. Members of the channel, we are expanding those benefits at all times. If you want to become a member of the channel too, I'd love you if you can do that. Like I said, we'll be doing the Thursday night streams every week. For members of the channel, we'll be doing call-in streams on the weekends at times. We're getting a lot of extra little shows in there and stuff for you if you're a patron or if you're a member. Patrons, there is a link down in the description section if you want to join in that fashion of things. So a lot on deck here, a lot planned. And of course, 1 week from now, yours truly will be in Seattle. So 30th, 31st, 1st, we're going to go into the game on the 2nd, which is going to be the scrimmage Fan Fest game. So I will be there at all of those dates. If you want to join me out there at training camp in Renton, I'll be up on the berm over on the left-hand side of the berm. So if you're facing the field on the left-hand side of the berm, kind of middle of the way up, look for me, come over and say hi. I'd love to meet some folks out there. I had a chance to do that last year, and it was really cool. Be at the scrimmage as well. So you can join me out there as well. I'd be love to see you guys and just say, hey, what's up? Put some names to faces. That's always a good time, always fun. And I am really, really, really looking forward to being able to come back to my home, coming back up to Seattle, doing a little bit of this training camp. And it's going to be a real good time. So thank you guys for watching. I really, really do appreciate you guys on that. We will be back very, very soon. Very, very soon. And I know we don't know what we got in this team this year quite yet, do we? We don't know if they're going to be good. We don't know if they're going to be middle of the road. We don't know if there are going to be some troubles and bumps in the road that they've got to get around with having a new offensive coordinator, Sam Darnold coming in. We'll see on that front of it, but I'm feeling very good about this team in this situation. You're sitting in a position where things do inject well and they do click in right, and the youngsters do now fully kind of come into bloom that we've drafted over the last couple of years. This team becomes something that can actually make some noise this year. They can start to finally break through that ceiling and become a contender. And then you also now are sitting on the money, whether it is to make a deal now or make a deal up around the trade deadline, to even further inject this team beyond that, to make them even better. That just brings up the potentiality of the season that much more. So I know Vegas is selling low. I know they got us at 7.5 wins. I know the national perspective on this has us even on some power rankings up at 26. But I'm telling you, this team's better than that. I'm telling you, this is going to be a better season than that. I'm telling you, we're heading to the playoffs. I'm telling you that we're capable of making playoff noise. You better be ready to be on deck on this. You better be ready to be on point. You better be paying attention to this team this year. Randall McDaniel finishing us off right, as he has so very often on this channel so many times before, with another $2 donation, says, thoughts on the M's through 99 games. Well, the Mariners have done a good job of cobbling some parts and pieces together on the lineup to make it a little more valid than it's been in years past, which has been good to see, Randall. It's been good to see the team more leaning in towards being willing to take walks and get on base for swinging at pitches that are out of the zone and striking out far too often. Cal's obviously put a lot of the team on his back at times in the way that he's played. Julio's been solid, and you're waiting for him to kind of get to that full top end, but he's still been very good and certainly has been a great fielder out there in center field. I think that they're further along than they've been at any time in the past couple of years, as they've been very close to getting through, to them themselves becoming a playoff team. The requirement at this point is that you've got to make some moves, and that the offense is going to need more if you're really going to try to make a push here. You're getting by, but you can do more than get by. You can actually have a lineup that's well rounded out, and they don't have to me, sacrifice their farm system to do it. Their farm system is so deep right now. It's got so many guys they're going to be ready to come for the next couple of years, that they've got the assets to go get viable hitters. And they're sitting in a pretty good situation as far as their payroll goes, to where they can afford it. Not to mention the fact that the fans continue to stuff the stadium. So why not go make this kind of move? You've been kind of hesitant to do it in the last few years. You're always trying to find that guy who you're hoping you can squeeze a little bit left out of their bat. This year, go get the viable bat. Go get the true blue guy that can actually have impact and help take this team into the playoffs and maybe even further beyond that, because you've got the rotation that can get it done. You've got the bullpen that can get it done. You even got the defense that can get it done. It just all comes down to do you have enough offense, Randall? And that's the part where they can do something about that, but they've got to have the stones to make the move. And it seems like in recent years, they've been a little bit more hesitant and just trying to just keep building the farm, keep building the farm, keep building the farm, which is fine. I get why they did that. But maybe now is the time in a special season with Cal Raleigh, that an all-time type year that he's having, if there was a time to jump, if there was a time to strike, there's no greater sign that you're going to see than that to do this now. So hopefully they finally do, but that's part of the maddening part of them, Randall, over the past few years is this Mariner team just will not jump, and that they'll sit in that little pocket and they'll just stay there and hope it works out. And sometimes you got to take the bull by the horns and actually do something tangible as far as a move to make it happen. Go back to 95, that's a team that had budget limitations. That was a team that couldn't afford payroll at every different turn. They didn't necessarily have the farm system in the same place that we have our farm system. Yet you were able to make a move at that time to go get a guy like Andy Bennis to help get you into the playoffs, go get you another starting arm for that rotation to get you into the playoffs. So do it again, Randall. Do it again. Get us excited about that by making a couple of those moves to take this thing over the top, because the division is yours if you can just get a little bit more bats. A little bit more. Just a little bit more. All right. Well, we'll call it on that note. I thank you, Randall. You've been awesome, man, with all of your donations, but you always are. That's no new thing, and I do appreciate it. And that is forever, brother. I appreciate you, man. Back here very soon. Like I said at the top, I know National Perspective here is one that they're selling low on us, but you don't sell low on this Seattle Seahawks team. I cover this team as close as you can cover it, and I'm telling you right now, the potential is there. I wouldn't blow smoke. I wouldn't gaslight you guys. I'm telling it to you true. This team's got a potentiality this year of getting themselves to an elite status, of getting themselves to a contending status. Do things have to come together? Do young guys have to develop? Do you have to make a trade down the line maybe at some point to put the team up over the top to get there? Yes. But it's not pie in the sky. It's not shooting star. It's not completely improbable at every turn like maybe the National Perspective would have you believe. So have the faith, have some optimism, and know that we might be in for one hell of a season this year. And ride with me every step of the way. Thank you for watching. Back soon. Have the faith. Maybe a great year coming on board. But until next time, please don't you ever forget. Please don't do it. Don't you do it. Don't you dare. Go Hawks.